My mom opened credit cards in my name. When I confronted her, she snapped, "You should have budgeted better." My mother adopted Lila Bennett when I was 29. She was called a miraculous blessing from heaven. I was pleased for Mom. She has felt lonely since Dad died. Lila Bennett was 17 and about to age out of foster care. Mom wanted to give her a chance. Noble cause. I fully backed it. Even assisted with the adoption fees. $6,200 of my savings. The first month was excellent. Mom was shining. Lila Bennett was kind, helpful and thankful. Then everything changed. Mom began calling me with requests. "Lila Bennett needs new school clothing. Could you take her shopping?" "Sure, Mom." I spent $950 that day. Lila Bennett selected all designer items. Mom claimed she earned it after her difficult life. Lila Bennett will need a laptop for school next week. $2,400, followed by a phone. Latest model. An additional $1,200. Mom would call and cry. "This poor youngster has never had anything good. You had everything growing up. You can afford to support your sister." "She is not my sister, Mom. She's your adoptive daughter. How could you be so cold? She is now family." By month 4, I was Lila Bennett's personal ATM. Dance courses cost $900 per month. Private instruction cost $720. Clothing, shoes, and spending money. Mom never inquired if I could afford it. I figured I'd pay. Meanwhile, Mom forgot about my birthday. First time in 29 years. She was taking Lila Bennett for a spa weekend. Lila Bennett required rest following her difficult background. I paid for this spa weekend. I attempted to set boundaries. "Mom, I can't continue to finance everything for Lila Bennett. You have a pension." She felt offended. "This hardly covers our costs. You do well financially. Lila Bennett deserves the same opportunities that you had." "I worked through college, Mom. You forced me to acquire a job when I was 17. That was different. You were fortunate. Lila Bennett need caring." Christmas arrived. Mom invited me over. When I arrived, the tree was adorned with gifts. All for Lila Bennett. Mom hadn't even given me a card. I didn't want to make Lila Bennett feel awful by having you here with presents as well. This day is about making her feel special. I left. Mom called me selfish for spoiling Lila Bennett's first real Christmas. My mother called in January, worried. Lila Bennett was accepted to a private college. $54,000 each year. You'll contribute with the tuition, right? Mom. I am saving for a house. Your sister's education is more vital than your own comfort. She isn't my sister, and I already have student loans for my own studies. You can afford both. Stop being greedy. I said, no. Mom did not talk to me for 3 weeks. Then she called, weeping. Lila Bennett was crushed. I thought I despised her. Mom claimed I was harming this child's future. Okay, I'll pay for 1 semester. Watch how she does. Lila Bennett failed every course. We spent the semester partying. $27,000 was squandered. Mom offered excuses. She's adapting. Never had structure before. Requires more help. Pay for another semester. No. This time, Mom went ugly. After everything I've sacrificed raising you, you can't even help your sister succeed. Did you make any sacrifices? I started working when I was 14 years old to buy my own clothing. You were a single mother trying her best. Now Lila Bennett requires the same assistance. Lila Bennett is receiving far more support than I ever did. That's when Mom played her card. I am altering my will. Everything goes to Lila Bennett. She really needs it. You are succeeded. You don't require inheritance. I laughed. What is the inheritance? Mom, your home has a second mortgage. Your automobile is 10 years old. Mom hung up. 3 days later, Lila Bennett phoned. Mom claims you're envious of me. I believe we should discuss. We met for coffee. Lila Bennett bought the most costly drink, placed it on my bill without asking, and then informed me about her plan. Mom promised me the home after her death, but I need it sooner. Can you purchase it from her now? Let us reside there, rentre. Are you serious? Mom is getting older. She need care. I cannot give it without stability. You want me to buy my mother's house and let you live there for free? It's what's best for Mom. I stood up and went. Lila Bennett reported to Mom that I was aggressive. Mom labeled me abusive. I said I had traumatized Lila Bennett. She was now experiencing anxiety attacks. The patient required treatment. Can I pay for it? That's when I made a decision. I called my mother's sister, Aunt Margaret Maggie Collins. I told her everything. Money, demands, and a threat of will. Margaret Maggie Collins was outraged. She had been sending money to her mother on a regular basis to help with expenditures, assuming she was struggling. I contacted Mom's brother, Daniel Brooks. The same story. He had been paying his mother's auto insurance and phone bill for Lila Bennett's benefit. We compared notes. Mom received over $4,500 each month from family members, in addition to her pension and my contributions for Lila Bennett. She had been playing everyone. We all ceased making payments immediately. Mom contacted each of us in a frenzy. Her debts were past due. Lila Bennett required items. We recommended she acquire a job. Alternatively, Lila Bennett may acquire a job. Mom was outraged. Lila Bennett was focused on her schoolwork. What studies? She quit out after failing. Mom hadn't informed anyone about that section last month. Mom phoned me weeping after Lila Bennett departed. I awoke the next morning and couldn't get out of bed right away. My phone was on the nightstand, with 6 missed calls from Mom, all from yesterday. Instead, I grabbed my laptop and launched my banking application. The checking account totaled $3,100. 3 months ago, it was $20,500. I went back to my credit card bills and totaled up the figures again, even though I already knew what they would be. Card 1 costs $950. Card 2 costs $13,900. Card 3 was capped at $16,500. Card 4 costs $7,400, $47,800 in 3 months. The laptop screen blurred, and I had to blink many times. Lila Bennett was gone and I should have been relieved, but instead I felt exhausted and dumb. I contacted my boss to tell her I had food poisoning. She said to feel better, and I hung up before she could ask any further questions. The apartment was quiet, and I sat there staring at the red numbers on the screen until they no longer resembled money and instead appeared to be an error I couldn't fix. Mom's first voicemail rang when I was pouring coffee. Her voice sounded faint and panicky. Lila Bennett cleared out the guest room and stole everything, even the laptop you purchased her. I need you to call me immediately back. The second communication arrived 12 minutes after the first. This is your fault for being so unsupportive, and Lila Bennett has left, and I have no idea where she is. The third message made Mom cry. You pushed her away with your attitude, and now I'm alone again. Message 4 accused me of jealousy. Message 5 stated, I needed to help fix the situation. Message 6, left after 11, stated that Lila Bennett had also taken the new phone, and Mom needed me to replace it so she could try to reach her. I erased all 6 texts without replying. Whatever Mom wanted would cost me money I didn't have, or energy I had already expended. She'd either ask me to go seek for Lila Bennett or pay over money to replace what Lila Bennett had taken. I poured my coffee and disconnected my phone from its charger. Margaret Maggie Collins phoned that evening as I was having cereal for dinner because I hadn't done my food shopping in 3 weeks. Her voice had an edge that I hadn't heard before. I hired Claire Donovan, a private investigator, to investigate into Lila Bennett's history. I almost dropped the spoon. Margaret Maggie Collins kept chatting. Claire Donovan discovered data from the state foster system. Lila Bennett has been adopted and returned by 3 separate homes over the last 4 years. Each time money went missing from the family, including large sums, credit cards, cash and jewelry that was sold. The first family lost over $22,000. The second family filed accusations, but Lila Bennett was a juvenile. Therefore the documents were sealed. The third family just returned her to the state without submitting a report. Despite the fact that I had eaten so little, my stomach felt terrible. Margaret Maggie Collins' voice became softer. Your mother either didn't look into Lila Bennett's background or noticed it and didn't care. Regardless, this was bound to happen. We hung up after Margaret Maggie Collins agreed to give me the investigator's report. I sat at my kitchen table with my bowl of soggy cereal, feeling vindicated, enraged, and foolish all at once. Daniel Brooks contacted me 4 days later with an idea. On Sunday afternoon, the family met at his residence. He had previously contacted Margaret Maggie Collins and Mom's other brother, Michael Hayes, who resided 2 states away. Michael Hayes had also been giving Mom money, around $900 each month, to assist with food. Daniel Brooks wanted everyone but Mom to compare notes and determine out how much money she had accumulated. On Sunday, I drove to Daniel Brooks' house and discovered Margaret Maggie Collins already there, holding a notepad. Michael Hayes arrived 25 minutes later, looking exhausted from the journey. We sat around Daniel Brooks' dining room table, holding our bank statements and receipts. Daniel Brooks had been paying Mom's auto insurance, $195 each month, as well as her phone bill, which was another $110. Margaret Maggie Collins had spent $675 a month on utilities. Michael Hayes paid $900 for food. My monthly payments for Lila Bennett totaled around $2,800, including normal bills and one-time purchases. We added it up 3 times to be sure. $6,900 per month for 3 months, plus Mom's pension of around $2,650. Daniel Brooks contacted Mom and asked her to come over, but she declined. "You're all ganging up on me, and I refuse to be treated like a criminal." We sat there after Daniel Brooks hung up, realizing we needed to assist Mom confront reality without encouraging whatever she was doing. Margaret Maggie Collins advised us to set limits and keep to them. Michael Hayes said Mom needed to learn that her actions had repercussions. I simply wanted to stop feeling like an ATM machine. Mom's landlord contacted me 3 weeks after Lila Bennett departed. The voice on the phone seemed professional yet annoying. "Your mother designated you as her emergency contact, and her rent is 45 days late." I could feel my face getting heated. "What amount does she owe?" $2,100 for this month, plus late fees. I promised the landlord I'd call him back, then contacted my mother. She answered the first ring. Before I could say anything about the rent, she began screaming about Lila Bennett stealing her jewelry box and the money she had been saving. I interrupted her. "Your landlord has just phoned me. You are 1 month overdue on your rent." Silence on the other end. "Mom." More silence. Then she began talking quickly about how the money from the family had been going toward Lila Bennett's expenditures, and she suddenly didn't have enough to cover everything. "What are the expenditures, Mom? Lila Bennett is no longer alive. I got a new couch last month since the old one was going apart, and I rented a newer automobile because mine was constantly breaking down." The words spilled out before I could stop them. "You spent our money on furnishings and a vehicle." She became defensive. "I needed those things, and Lila Bennett need a comfortable house." I asked her explicitly how much debt she owed. She admits spending $19,500 on credit cards. Her pension barely paid her utility bills, car leasing and insurance. Everything else had come from relatives. Margaret Maggie Collins urged me to check my credit record when I phoned her about my mother's debt. I signed on to the credit monitoring website that I had been neglecting for months and watched the page load. 2 credit cards I didn't recognize appeared under my accounts. Card 1 from a large bank was opened 9 months ago. The balance is $8,200. Card 2 is from a department shop that opened 7 months ago. The balance is $5,100. My hands became shaky. I navigated through the transaction history. Cash advances, internet shopping sites, and eateries in Mom's area that I'd never visited. The cards were unwrapped before Lila Bennett arrived. I phoned Margaret Maggie Collins back, and my voice sounded strangely high. "Mom opened credit cards under my name 9 months ago." Margaret Maggie Collins cursed, something I had not heard her do before. "That is identity theft. You ought to report this, but she is my mother." Margaret Maggie Collins' voice became harsh. "She is also a thief." I hung up and gazed at my laptop screen until the numbers no longer made sense. The Lila Bennett issue was horrible enough, but at least I decided to give the money. This was different. This was Mom stealing from me before Lila Bennett came into the scene. The attorney's office was located in a plain downtown building with beige carpeting and fluorescent lighting. Andrew Cole was younger than I imagined, perhaps 35, with spectacles and a worn countenance. He listened as I described the credit cards and showed him the statements I had printed. When I finished speaking, he reclined back in his chair. "This is textbook identity theft and financial fraud. You can submit a police complaint and dispute the charges with your credit card company. They will investigate, and you will not be held accountable for the fake debt." I felt relieved for approximately 3 seconds before he continued talking. "However, submitting the report implies that the police will investigate your mother. If they discover proof that she opened the accounts, which they will based on what you've given me, she might face criminal charges. Identity theft is a crime." I sat there, feeling my stomach plummet. "So I have to decide between my financial future and perhaps sending my mother to jail." Andrew Cole nodded slowly. "Unfortunately, these are your alternatives." He gave me documentation to take home and study. I left his office feeling ill. I went to Mom's house, carrying the credit card statements in a folder on my passenger seat. She answered the door, appearing smaller than usual and dressed in an old robe, despite the fact that it was 3 p.m. I stepped past her into the living area and noticed the new couch she had described, a gray sectional that cost around $2,400. I placed the folder on the coffee table and opened it. When Mom glanced at the documents, her face turned white. "Where did you obtain this?" I pulled my credit report. "You opened 2 cards under my name 9 months ago." She attempted to talk, but nothing came out at first. Then she started making excuses. I was desperate. The pension wasn't sufficient. "You have a lot of money," I interrupted her. "I am drowning in debt because of you and Lila Bennett. $47,000 on my legitimate cards, plus $13,500 on the bogus ones." She became enraged then. "You should have budgeted better." I felt a crack inside me. "If you do not sign a payment agreement immediately, I will file a police report." Her expression swung from amazement to fury, and then she began weeping. "Would you really do it to your mother?" I brought out the agreement that Andrew Cole had helped me draft. $65 every month until the $13,500 is paid back. 208 months, and 17 years. She snatched the paper with trembling hands and read it. "This is absurd. Sign that. Or I'll go to the police today." She signed. Daniel Brooks contacted me 4 weeks later, his voice tense with rage. Lila Bennett contacted my daughter via Instagram, telling her she was homeless and in need of aid. My cousin Emily Brooks was 20 and worked part-time at a coffee shop. She was about to send Lila Bennett $250 when Daniel Brooks discovered the texts and stopped her. He had given Emily Brooks the investigator's findings and described what Lila Bennett had done to her family. I felt protective wrath rush through me. "She is currently addressing the younger generation." Daniel Brooks agreed. "I'm warning everyone with children. She's probably looking over a list of everyone associated with your mother." I thanked him before hanging up. Then I phoned Claire Donovan and asked her to look into what Lila Bennett had been doing since she departed. 4 days later, Claire Donovan called back with information that made me want to hurl my phone across the room. Lila Bennett lives with Evan Miller, a 34-year-old guy from the neighboring county. They're at an apartment that he's renting. I discovered her social media sites with a new identity. She has postings from 2 weeks ago talking about defrauding her wealthy adoptive parents. One message referred to your mother as a foolish old lady who believed everything. Claire Donovan provided me screenshots, which I looked at on my PC. Lila Bennett's face and images appeared pleasant and arrogant. The piece discussed how simple it was to deceive those who wanted to feel like heroes. There was no sorrow or shame, only gratification from pulling off a good scam. I saved all of the screenshots to a folder on my desktop and felt something settle within me. This evidence that Lila Bennett never cared, that everything was premeditated, let me accept what had occurred. The evidence was obvious and conclusive. I sent Claire Donovan's report to Daniel Brooks and Margaret Maggie Collins that evening. The screenshots were stored to a shared cloud folder that we made to capture everything relating to Mom and Lila Bennett. Daniel Brooks phoned me 12 minutes later and informed me that he was adding his daughter's Instagram interaction to the folder. "We're putting together a case without really intending to, simply attempting to protect ourselves and track the harm." Margaret Maggie Collins texted the group chat, wondering if we should reveal Mom the proof about Lila Bennett's social media posts. I replied back that Mom was unlikely to believe it and would make excuses. Daniel Brooks agreed. We resolved to keep the knowledge to ourselves unless Mom mentioned Lila Bennett again. My phone rang at 2 a.m., 4 days later. Mom's name appeared on the screen. I almost didn't respond because I was tired of her manipulative behavior and late-night turmoil. But something prompted me to pick up. She's breathing quickly, and her voice sounds strange. "I'm at the hospital with chest problems. You are still my emergency contact. They need you to come." My heart pounds as I sit up in bed, wondering if this is genuine or a scam. "Where are you, St. Mary's ER? Please come." I put on pants and a sweater and drive to the hospital, angry and concerned at the same time. Throughout the journey I kept thinking about the letter Claire Donovan discovered in which Lila Bennett proposed faking medical problems. This might be just that. But what if it is true and I disregard it? The ER waiting room smells like cleaning chemicals and stale coffee. I provide my mother's name at the receptionist, and a nurse leads me back to a small room with beeping machines and bright lights. Mom is laying on a bed with cables linked to her chest. Her face appears pallid and aged. She reaches for my hand as soon as she sees me. I am afraid. I think I am having a heart attack. I sat on the plastic chair next to her bed without taking her hand. The physicians are doing tests. She nods. They took blood. Did they do an EKG and say they needed to monitor me? A doctor arrives 25 minutes later with a pill and a fatigued look. He informs Mom that the tests suggest it is not a heart attack. It appears to be a panic attack, but her blood pressure is really high and she should lower her stress and see her usual doctor. Mom begins to cry and says she has been under a lot of stress. The doctor nods and exits. I sit for 7 hours while they perform further tests and check her blood pressure. Mom falls asleep at 6 a.m. Her handbag is resting on the chair next to me. I need to find her insurance card to complete the papers they handed me. I open the handbag and search through receipts, old Kleenex, and a wallet. There's a folded piece of paper in the side pocket. I take it out and unfurl it. It is a letter. Lila Bennett's handwriting is at the top, along with a date from 2 months before she departed. I begin reading, and my stomach drops. The letter discusses their strategy to acquire additional money from me. Lila Bennett writes about how I'm starting to resist and proposes that Mom stage a medical emergency if I keep saying no. Says I'll cave if I believe Mom is dying. Suggests chest pains, which usually draw attention. I reread the letter 3 times. Each time I feel worse. Mom knew. She understood precisely what Lila Bennett was doing. They planned it jointly. Mom was not the victim of Lila Bennett's deception. She was a willing partner. I fold the letter and place it in my jacket pocket. My hands tremble. Mom awakens about 7:30. She blinks at the fluorescent lights before looking at me. Thank you for attending. I could have died. I grab the letter out of my pocket and unfold it. Hold it up so that she can see. Did you realize Lila Bennett was using you to defraud her family? Mom's eyes widened. Where did you obtain those? Your purse. While searching for your insurance card. Answer the question. She reaches for the letter, but I draw it back. That is private. It is evidence. Did you know what Lila Bennett was doing? Mom's face changes. Goes from stunned to defensive. I'm not sure what you're talking about. The letter actually details your strategy to stage medical emergencies. She looks away. Begin picking at the hospital blanket. I knew Lila Bennett had been in trouble previously, but I believed that if I offered her love and money, she would change. That is not an answer. Did you realize she was defrauding us? Mom's been silent for a while. Then she nods. I got caught up in the fact that someone needed me. After your father died, I felt worthless. Lila Bennett made me feel significant. I did not want to know the reality about what we were doing. For the first time, she apologizes for hurting me. Then she says she was lonely and heartbroken and didn't know what else to do. I fold the letter and put it back into my pocket. I'll assist you achieve stability, but only under certain conditions. What conditions? We're drafting a contract. I'm not going to give you any more money without conditions. Mom appears offended. I am your mother, not a business deal. You established credit cards in my name and prepared fictitious emergencies with Lila Bennett. This is a commercial transaction now. She does not argue after that. I phone Andrew Cole from the hospital parking lot and tell him what I found. He claims he can create an agreement and have it ready by tomorrow. I drive home, sleep for 4 hours, and then head to Andrew Cole's office. The contract that Andrew Cole makes is basic. Mom must get financial advice. Pay me back $65 each month for the fake credit cards. Have no communication with Lila Bennett, save that I will only grant emergency assistance after ensuring that the need is genuine. I carry the contract to Mom's residence 3 days after she is released from the hospital. She reads at her kitchen table. Her mouth tightens. You are treating me like a criminal. You perpetrated fraud on me. Sign it, or I'll file a police report. She picks up the pen. Her hand shakes as she signs her name at the bottom. I create a copy on her printer and leave one for her. Take mine back to my flat and place it in the folder with all of the other paperwork. Having specific guidelines written down helps me feel stronger rather than guilty all the time. 4 weeks pass. Mom calls on Tuesday afternoon. Her voice sounds natural, not scared. My automobile requires repairs. $375. I cannot go to my doctor's visits without it. I'm at work and walk outside to answer the call. Request a written estimate from the mechanic beforehand. What? You not trust me? The contract requires that I verify emergencies before assisting. She erupts. Starts shrieking at me. calling me a terrible daughter who doesn't care if she dies because she can't go to the doctor, that I'm punishing her for a single error. She raised me better than this. I hung up. She called back 4 times. I don't respond. She does not talk to me for 14 days. The stillness is soothing rather than painful. I do not miss her calls or guilt trips. On day 15, she texts to see if I'm free for coffee. I say no. A Facebook message arrives in my filtered inbox on a Saturday morning. It is from Lila Bennett. Long paragraphs about Mom informing everyone that I abandoned them both. Lila Bennett wants to apologize and explain her side of the story. The message states that she is pregnant and afraid, that her mother is ill as a result of my actions, and that she just wants one chance to make things right. Each statement is intended to make me feel bad. I recognize all of the manipulative techniques Claire Donovan warned me about. The phony pregnancy, the blame, the assertion that one talk will resolve everything. I capture the entire communication and forward it to Andrew Cole, noting that Lila Bennett is still attempting to defraud me. Then I block Lila Bennett on Facebook, Instagram, and every other platform I can think of. Blocking her feels powerful, as if I'm finally learning to defend myself rather than falling for phony sorrow. 5 months after the family ceased providing money, Mom's landlord filed for eviction. Mom calls me weeping. I am going to be homeless. They are kicking me out. I cannot live on the street. I call the landlord immediately to confirm the problem. Mom owes 5 months of rent. Has not applied to any help programs. Has not sought for cheaper homes, despite receiving a list of budget flats. When the landlord talks about Mom, he seems exhausted. He claims he granted her extensions and payment arrangements, but she spent her money on other things instead of rent. I contact Margaret Maggie Collins to explain the problem. We spent the weekend assisting Mom in finding a tiny apartment that costs around 40% less than her current residence. Daniel Brooks agrees to co-sign the lease. Mom weeps as she sees the new flat. It's rather little. This is the amount you can afford. She relocates 3 weeks later. I assist her pack while seeing her lose the house she's lived in for 16 years. Half of me is saddened to see her downsize her entire life into a little 1-bedroom apartment. But another half understands that this outcome was inevitable. She caused the issue by lying, stealing, and failing to budget. Daniel Brooks, Margaret Maggie Collins and I meet in a coffee shop the week after Mom's move. We sit at a corner table, holding notebooks and coffee mugs. We need a strategy for assisting Mom that does not allow her to manipulate us or exhaust anybody too much. Daniel Brooks advises that we rotate checking on her. We each take 1 week every month. Margaret Maggie Collins believes we should split her treatment copays 3 ways if she attends therapy. I emphasize that she must present documentation before receiving financial assistance. We write everything down, make a shared calendar for the check-in cycle, and set up a group chat to coordinate. Things seem doable rather than having my extended family's support makes overwhelming. We all believe that assisting Mom entails acknowledging that she will likely never completely realize what she did wrong, but we can still provide her fundamental needs without supporting bad conduct. In November, I started visiting a therapist named Dr. Elena Ramirez. She specializes in treating family trauma and financial abuse. Her workspace features gentle lighting and cozy seats. During the first session, I tell her everything about Mom, Lila Bennett, and the money. Dr. Elena Ramirez listens without interfering. Then she asks about my childhood. I spoke about working since I was 14, how my mother forced me to buy my own clothes, and how I always felt responsible for my mother's pleasure. Dr. Elena Ramirez helps me identify trends that I hadn't recognized previously. My mother used guilt and responsibility to dominate me my whole life. The Lila Bennett case was simply an extreme version of pre-existing dynamics. I cry in her office, recognizing that Mom's deception did not begin with Lila Bennett. It began when I was a child, and my mother made me feel responsible for alleviating her loneliness when my father died. Processing this hurts, but Dr. Elena Ramirez helps me to distinguish between love and responsibility. Shows me that defending myself does not imply that I am a terrible daughter. Each session helps me realize that I can care for Mom without compromising myself. 7 months after Lila Bennett's departure, Mom and I met for lunch at a place none of us had chosen. Neutral territory. We sat across from each other, menus between us. Mom appears older than she did a year ago. I am more weary. We order our dinner and then sit in awkward quiet. Finally, Mother talks. I detest that you achieved success while I feel as if I wasted my life. Having Lila Bennett made me feel important and needed, which I hadn't felt since your father died. Her honesty astounds me. I tell her that I need her to view me as a person rather than a resource, and that I can't continue to be her solution to every problem. She nods slowly, doesn't quite understand, but agrees to continue trying in treatment. We eat our meals and discuss about trivial stuff like the weather, her new apartment, and my job. Nothing profound, but it is honest. We leave the restaurant knowing that our relationship will never be what any of us desired, but it can be authentic and have limits. That seems like plenty. I've been double-checking every dime for 8 months now. Lucas Grant provides me weekly statistics that show my debt lowering piece by bit. I eat leftovers for lunch and avoid buying new clothing. My coworkers go out for happy hour, while I stay home. The sacrifices accumulate slowly, like coins in a jar. By month 7, I've saved $13,500. By the 8th month, I had saved $17,000, which was enough for a small down payment. I meet with Rebecca Turner, a real estate agent, who shows me 3 properties within my budget. The first one requires too much effort. The second one is located on a busy thoroughfare. The third is a little 2-bedroom ranch with old carpet but solid bones. I submitted an offer the same day. The vendor accepts within 36 hours. 4 weeks later, I'm signing paperwork in a title company office. My hand is cramping from writing my name so many times. The mortgage officer pushes the last document across the desk and says, "Congratulations." I walk out of that office as a homeowner. My house, not Mom's, and not for Lila Bennett. Mine. I buy paint and spend weekends painting the bland walls in hues I truly enjoy. Aunt Margaret Maggie Collins helps me hang drapes. Uncle Daniel Brooks installs new light fittings in the kitchen. Mom even comes up on moving day with a casserole dish. She moves through the rooms, gazing at everything with an expression I don't understand. The home is tiny. She whispers it quietly, but I can hear her. I choose not to answer since nothing I say will change her perspective. We eat pizza on the floor of my empty living room, and my mother relates a tale about my father that makes me giggle. For one afternoon, everything feels almost normal. 6 weeks later, my phone calls while I am at work. Claire Donovan's name appears on the screen. I step outdoors to accept the call. She tells me Lila Bennett was arrested in Nevada for stealing from an elderly couple she lived with. Lila Bennett explained that she was a nursing student who needed a place to stay while doing clinical rotations. Instead, she emptied their checking account and maxed up their credit cards. The couple's son apprehended her and alerted the police. Claire Donovan reports that Nevada and New Mexico have filed identical complaints, indicating a trend dating back nearly 3 years. The prosecution believes Lila Bennett will face jail time since the evidence is substantial and the victims are old. I felt a sense of relaxation sweep through me. Not quite bliss, but at least knowing she won't be able to hurt anybody else for a long. Claire Donovan adds that my police report on the identity theft helped establish Lila Bennett's background. I thank her before hanging up. That night, I called Aunt Margaret Maggie Collins to tell her the news. She responds, "Good." And we both sit quietly on the phone for a minute. That is all that any of us needs to say. 2 weeks after Claire Donovan's call, Mom arrives at my place unexpectedly. She is carrying a little plant in a ceramic pot and a white envelope. I open the door and she offers me both goods without speaking. The card inside features flowers on the front and 4 phrases written in Mom's handwriting. I apologize for not seeing you. There's no explanation. No excuses for Lila Bennett, loneliness, or anything else. Just these 7 words. I glance at Mom standing on my doorstep, and she stares back at me with tired eyes. This does not resolve anything between us. It does not erase the money, the manipulation, or the year of upheaval. However, this is the first time she has apologized without instantly defending herself. I thank her and ask her in for coffee. We sit at my kitchen table and speak about little details. Her new apartment, my work, and the weather turning colder. Nothing profound or significant. Just 2 people figuring out how to interact with each other. Honestly, she departs after an hour, and I place the plant on my ledge, where it will receive afternoon sun. It's been almost 11 months since Lila Bennett left her mother's house. On a Saturday morning, I am sitting in my living room with a cup of coffee and the newspaper strewn over my lap. The home is silent save for the clicking of the heater. My bank account balance is gradually increasing rather than decreasing. Mom and I chat around every 3 weeks. I occasionally assist her with little tasks like as transporting her to appointments or servicing her computer, but I never pay her bills, offer her money, or allow her to guilt me into anything. Uncle Daniel Brooks and Aunt Margaret Maggie Collins also keep an eye on her, so we share the job. Mom still makes statements that indicate she does not fully realize what she did wrong. She still believes Lila Bennett was disturbed rather than calculating, but she is making an effort in her limited capacity, which is more than I expected a year earlier. In 1 year, my relationship with Lila Bennett cost me more than $45,000. But it taught me an essential lesson about saying no and defending myself, even if my family thinks it's selfish. Every relationship in my life has improved once I learned to set limits. My friendships are stronger because I am not always exhausted and resentful. My professional performance increased when I stopped being sidetracked by family drama. Even my connection with my mother is more honest now that it isn't focused on her wants or my guilt. I finish my coffee and explore the tiny house I purchased with my own money. The walls are painted in hues that I picked. The furniture suits my tastes. Nobody else has the key. This is my space, and I earned it by learning to appreciate myself enough to quit contributing to other people's issues. Family love does not necessitate financial sacrifice or enduring deception. It can coexist with boundaries, honesty, and mutual respect. That is what I have now. Not flawless, but authentic and sustainable. I set down my coffee cup and begin deciding what color to paint the bedroom. My mother shows up at my dad's funeral with 4 kids, claiming she's entitled to my inheritance. You abandoned me when I was 8, you get nothing. I am Rachel, and I am 29 years old. My name is Rachel. My father passed away from a heart attack that occurred right there in his workplace 5 days ago. Not in any other way. The next minute, he was no longer there, and the minute before that, he was still alive and working on some building contract. It was not long, according to the paramedic. I believe that is meant to make me feel better, but it does not end up doing so. Everything was organized by me on my own. It was the funeral home, the flowers, the service, and the piece of land in the cemetery. Dad was wealthy, so I was able to afford to do it the correct way. His business associates arrived, individuals with whom he had collaborated for years on the construction of homes all around the city. Additionally, his pals from the golf club decided to turn there. In order to pay their respects, even some of the workers who had been employed at his building sites. They never stopped going on and on about how much of a nice man he was, how he helped them out when things were difficult, and how he provided them with consistent job. It was a pleasant experience. The pastor shared his thoughts on the father's love for his family as well as his kind nature. I was the only member of his family that remained after everything else. After the departure of his mother, the only other person who truly mattered to Dad was his grandmother, who had passed away 2 years before. When I heard someone cry out my name, Rachel, I was standing at the gravesite watching them drop the casket. After turning around, I became completely still. There she was, my mother, standing from a distance of around 12 feet, accompanied by 4 children and a man whom I did not recognize. The eldest appeared to be approximately 18 years old, while the youngest appeared to be around 12 years old. Every one of them was dressed in black clothing, as if they were a part of this place. For the past 22 years, I hadn't seen her. I could see that she was becoming older. Her tresses were distinct in that they were shorter and darker. Despite the fact that she had gained weight, it was undeniably her. In this place, what are you doing? I inquired about it. My tone was icy and abrasive on the way out. How were you even aware that he had passed away? You are not aware of this. I was informed by a few of my relatives. He placed his hand on her shoulder and he was standing next to her. The man was tall, balding, and dressed in a low-quality suit. The person she fled away with all those years ago must be this boyfriend or girlfriend. With an uneasy expression on their faces, the 4 children stood behind them. I can't believe you didn't invite me to the funeral, she remarked in response. It made me giggle to say, he was my husband once. My father's grave was the location when I actually laughed out loud. Your husband? You left him 22 years ago. You left both of us. The memories came flooding back to me as I continued to speak. The event took place when I was 8 years old. The father had gone on a business trip to the upstate area in order to look at some property. He was only scheduled to be absent for a period of 3 days. When his car finally pulled out of the driveway, Mom waited for it. Following that, she began packing. When I asked her where she was going, I recalled asking her. It's going to be a while before Mommy can return. She concluded by saying, you stay here. Daddy will be back soon. However, she did not wait for her father. On the kitchen table she left a message that she had written, along with 2 luggage that she had packed. After then, she exited the building and started driving away in her vehicle. She left me there by myself for a full 3 days without any company. I was so terrified that I couldn't even stand it. As a result of my lack of knowledge on how to prepare other foods, I ate cereal for both morning and lunch. While I waited for someone to return home, I would watch television. It kept running through my head that when my mother returned, she would realize that she had forgotten something. But she didn't. When my father arrived home at last, he saw me sitting on the couch wearing the same clothing that I had been wearing for the previous 3 days. I cried as I ran to him and told him that his mother had passed away. He read the message that she had written. Despite the fact that I never saw what it stated, his face became white. Then, he rolled it up into a ball and tossed it away in the garbage. After that, everything happened very quickly. Mom was supposed to show up in court for the divorce and custody hearing, but she never showed up. The judge awarded Dad full custody and terminated her parental rights. He said this out loud, more to himself than to me. After that, everything happened very quickly. Dad called his lawyer. Papers were filed. My father informed me later that my mother had been having an affair with a man from her workplace. They had been preparing this for months, waiting for the appropriate opportunity to go away together. That moment came when my father left town and I was left alone and defenseless. At that point, she was legally removed from our life. "Rachel, these are your brothers and sisters," she continued, nodding to the children. "And this is Ethan." Now here she was, 22 years later, with her boyfriend and their 4 children behaving as if she had some right to be at her father's burial. He is 18 years old. Olivia is 15 years old. I turned my gaze to them, and they returned my gaze with eyes that were filled with curiosity. And little Ben is 12. They probably had no idea who I was or why their mother had brought them to a stranger's funeral. "I don't care," I said. I turned away from her and walked toward my car. I heard her calling my name, but I didn't look back. I had nothing to say to her. She'd made her choice a long time ago, and now she'd have to live with it. The past 22 years flashed through my mind as I drove home. Dad and I had worked together to figure things out. It was difficult at first. It was heartbreaking, and I had to work constantly to avoid thinking about what my mother had done. I spent the majority of my time with Grandma, Dad's mother, who moved in to help take care of me. However, Dad's business took off. He channeled all of the anger and pain that he was experiencing into his work. He began to get larger contracts, which resulted in him making more money. We moved into a massive house in the most desirable part of town. He never remarried, and he never even had a serious girlfriend, despite the fact that women tried. He claimed that I was enough of a family for him. I attended college through my father's financial support and studied business administration. He bought me an apartment when I graduated. I got a good job, but I didn't really need to work because of what Grandma left me when she died. She'd saved up $250,000 over the years, plus she left me her house. I sold the house and invested everything smart. I could live off the interest if I wanted to, but I liked having something to do. And now he was gone, and I was all by myself. Well, I wasn't completely alone. He had left everything to me, including the business, the house, his cars, and all of his money. I discovered his will in the drawer of his desk. It was straightforward and unambiguous. Everything goes to Rachel. I suppose that my mother found out about it in some way. This is probably the reason why she showed up today. It's not because she was upset about her father's passing. Rather, she wanted to know what she could get out of it. After the funeral, a few days passed, and I made an effort to get back to some kind of normal routine. Normal is a relative term when your entire world has just been turned upside down. I had to deal with the company that my father owned, figure out what to do with all of his assets, and handle the legal stuff that comes with someone passing away. I made the decision not to sell the construction company because my father had started it from scratch, and it seemed wrong to just get rid of it. In addition, the company was making a good amount of money. Chris, my father's deputy, had been working for the company for 15 years. He was completely knowledgeable about the business, and my father trusted him completely. As a result, I appointed Chris as CEO of the company while maintaining ownership for myself. It was Tuesday afternoon around 3 o'clock when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone to come in, so I looked through the peephole before opening the door. It was my mother standing there by herself this time, with no husband or children present. It seemed like the right thing to do. I was in my apartment going through some of my father's paperwork. Despite my better judgment, I stepped aside and allowed her to enter my living room. She looked around, taking in the nice furniture, the large windows, and the expensive art that was hanging on the walls. She was wearing jeans and a sweater, and she appeared to be nervous. I opened the door, but I did not invite her inside. "What do you want? Can I come in? Just give me a few minutes." "This is a beautiful place," she said. "How did you get my address?" I asked around. "Some of your father's distant relatives gave it to me." "Great." So now she was tracking me down through family connections. "What do you want?" I asked again. She sat down on my couch without being invited. "Rachel, I know you inherited a lot of money from your father and from your grandmother too." I felt my stomach drop. How the hell did she know about grandma's money? "What's your point?" "My point is that you're very wealthy now, and I think you should share some of that wealth with your family." I stared at her. "My family?" "Yes. With me and your brothers and sisters. Those 4 children you met at the funeral. They're your half-siblings. You are single, you do not have any children of your own to worry about, and you have more money than you could ever spend. In the meantime, I am struggling to raise 4 children on the salary that my husband earns. Rachel, they need assistance with school, with college funds, and with basic living expenses." I actually laughed because I couldn't help myself. "Are you serious right now?" "Completely serious." While I was sitting down opposite of her, I said, "Let me get this straight. You abandoned me when I was 8 years old. You left me alone in an empty house for 3 days. You never called, never wrote, never sent a birthday card, and you never asked how I was doing for 22 years, and now you want me to give you money." She had the decency to look ashamed for about 3 seconds. Then she straightened up and became defensive. "I never loved your father, Rachel. I couldn't live with him anymore. But I knew he would take care of you. You were always his little princess. You left me because you wanted to run away with your boyfriend and you didn't want to be bothered with a kid." Her face turned red. "I never loved your father. And now," I continued, "now that your father has passed away and you have discovered that I inherited his money, you suddenly remember that you have a daughter. Suddenly you want a relationship. However, what you really want is half of everything. That is not true, is it? Then why didn't you fight for custody? Why didn't you even show up to court?" She didn't have an answer for that. "It's not about the money," she said. But her voice wasn't convincing. "The hell it isn't. You didn't love Dad, but you sure love his money now." She tried a different approach. "Rachel, those children are innocent in all this. They didn't do anything wrong. Ethan wants to go to college, but we can't afford it. Olivia needs braces. Little Ben has learning disabilities and needs special tutoring. They're your brothers and sisters." "No, they're not. They're your children with the man you left us for. There's nothing to me. How can you be so cold?" "Cold? You want to talk about cold? You left an 8-year-old alone in a house for 3 days. You never contacted that child for 22 years. And now you show up demanding money. That's cold." She stood up, getting frustrated. "You have millions of dollars, Rachel. More than one person needs. I'm asking for help with my children's education and basic needs. Then ask their father. Ask your husband. Don't ask the daughter you threw away. Your father turned you against me. Your actions spoke for themselves." She was getting desperate now. I could see it in her eyes. "Rachel, please. I'm begging you. Just think about it. These kids are struggling. And you could help them with pocket change compared to what you have. My father never said a bad word about you to me. He didn't have to. Your actions spoke for themselves. You keep talking about what a concerned mother you are today. How worried you are about the futures of your children. However, 22 years ago, you cared so little about your kid that you left her alone and afraid for 3 days. I was young, and I made errors. You keep talking about how worried you are about your children's futures." I walked toward the door and then turned back. "This isn't over. Those children deserve better." "Yeah, they do. They deserve a mother who doesn't abandon her children when things get tough." After she left, I poured myself a glass of wine and sat on my couch shaking. I opened the door and said, "I want you to leave. Please leave now." Rachel made her way toward the door. I couldn't believe the nerve of that woman. After 22 years of nothing, she wanted half of everything that Dad had worked for. I thought about those 4 children, and I felt bad for them. It wasn't their fault that their mother was selfish, and it was their father's fault that he apparently couldn't provide for them in the way that they needed. However, I wasn't responsible for them. After my mother left, he might have crumbled into pieces, but instead he channeled his anguish into constructing something better for us. He earned every dime he left me, and I wasn't going to let her guilt me into giving it away. I didn't owe them anything. My father had worked his tail off to establish the life that we had. 2 weeks later, I received a letter from a law firm that I had never heard of before. As I opened the letter, my hands were shaking. It was a lawsuit. My mother was suing me for half of Dad's estate. I called my lawyer immediately after receiving that lawsuit. His name is John Harris, and he had handled Dad's will as well as some business contracts over the years. Dad trusted him, so I did as well. When I showed David the documents, he said, "Rachel, I'm sorry to hear about this. However, you shouldn't worry too much about it. Your mother has no legal grounds to claim any part of your father's estate, but she's actually trying to sue me." Yes, but that doesn't mean that she will win. Anyone can file a lawsuit. Winning is a different story. We will fight this. The lawsuit asserted that my mother was entitled to a portion of my father's estate because she had been married to him for 8 years and had assisted in my upbringing. Her attorneys argued that she had made a contribution to the family and that she was entitled to compensation. Although the lawsuit was finalized, we were still required to go through the entire legal process. The trial began 4 months after his death. She had the audacity to bring her husband and all 4 children, and they sat in the front row as if they were the victims here. The children kept staring at me with these sad eyes, as if I were the villain who was preventing them from receiving their rightful inheritance. I was as nervous as hell as I walked into that courtroom. My mother was sitting at the other table with her attorney, a thin guy wearing an expensive suit who appeared to think he was hot. "Your Honor," the attorney for Mom went first. "My client had been married to the deceased for 8 years. During that time, she assisted in the upbringing of his daughter and made contributions to the household. As a result, she is entitled to her fair share of the assets that were acquired during the marriage." After that, he began to discuss how his mother had attempted to maintain a relationship with me after the divorce, but my father had prevented her from doing so. That was when I almost lost it. "She has 4 children who require financial assistance for school and basic needs," the lawyer said. "Meanwhile, the defendant has inherited millions of dollars that she cannot possibly spend in her lifetime." When it was David's turn, he spelled out the genuine circumstances. She ran away with her lover and never contacted her daughter again. She did not fight for custody, she did not pay child support, and she did not make any effort to be a part of this child's life for a period of 22 years. He had copies of the divorce papers, the custody documents, and everything else. "Your Honor, the plaintiff abandoned her daughter, who was 8 years old, and left her alone in a house for 3 days while her father was away on business. This is not about family relationships or fairness. This is about money, plain and simple." David pulled out bank records, phone records, and everything else that proved that my mother had never attempted to get in touch with me. The plaintiff only appeared in the defendant's life after she found out about the inheritance. The judge then began asking questions. That's when things got interesting. "Mrs. Green," the judge said to my mother, "why didn't you contact your daughter when she turned 18 and was no longer under her father's control?" Mom shifted in her seat. "I thought it was better to let her have a stable life with her father. But you're here now claiming you wanted a relationship with her." "Yes, Your Honor. I have always wanted to be a part of her life." "Then why did you wait until after her father had passed away and she had inherited his estate?" Mom's attorney raised his hand and said, "Objection, Your Honor. The timing of my client's outreach does not negate her legal rights." The judge responded by saying, "I'll allow the question." Mom appeared to be flustered. I had heard about the death through relatives, and I thought it was time to reconnect. The judge wasn't buying it. "Mrs. Green, why didn't you provide any financial support to your daughter over the past 22 years? But now you believe she should provide financial support to you?" Mom couldn't answer that one. She just sat there opening and closing her mouth like a fish. "And why?" The judge continued. "Should the court award you half of an estate that was built entirely after you abandoned your family?" At that point, Mom really lost her cool. She got to her feet and began yelling, "She doesn't need all that money, she's alone, nobody cares about her anyway. She's selfish and cold, just like her father was." The entire courtroom fell silent, and even her own children appeared embarrassed. I felt as though she had slapped me after everything that she had done. She was calling me selfish and cold. She was saying nobody cared about me. The judge banged his gavel. "Mrs. Green, sit down and control yourself." Her lawyer was trying to calm her down, but the damage was done. The judge looked at all the evidence, looked at Mom, then looked at me. "I find no legal basis for the plaintiff's claim," he said. The defendant inherited this estate through a valid will from her father, who had full legal right to dispose of his assets as he saw fit. He paused and looked directly at my mother. Furthermore, I believe that the defendant is fortunate that such a mother abandoned her, as she clearly deserved a better life than the plaintiff could have provided for her. Mom's face turned white. The plaintiff had forsaken her parental responsibilities 22 years ago and had not made any effort to be a part of her daughter's life until she learned about this inheritance. Case dismissed, the court said, despite the fact that her attorney attempted to raise an objection. "This isn't over," she screamed. "You'll regret this." David stated firmly. "Ma'am, you need to back away from my client." As we were leaving the courthouse, my mother pushed by her attorney and got right in my face. "The court has decided that the defendant is entitled to pay all of the costs." Her husband finally came over and pulled her away, but she kept staring at me with pure hatred in her eyes. I thought that would be the end of it. I was wrong. A week later, she somehow got my phone number and started calling me. Then she started texting. The messages were crazy, talking about how I was evil, how I'd stolen her children's future, how God would punish me. I blocked her number, but she got new phones and kept calling from different numbers. Then one day, she showed up at my office. Dad's construction company had a nice building downtown and she walked right into the lobby with all 4 kids. "I want to see Rachel," she yelled at the receptionist. "She's my daughter and she's abandoned her family." The poor receptionist didn't know what to do. I heard the commotion and came out to see what was happening. "You need to leave," I told Mom. "These children are hungry," she screamed. "You have millions and they're going without food because of your selfishness." The kids looked mortified. Other employees were staring. It was a complete scene. I called David once more and told him that we need a restraining order. I had hoped that it wouldn't come to that, but I actually believe that you are correct. David filed for the restraining order the following day. Security came and escorted her out, but the damage had already been done. My employees were asking questions, and the whole thing was embarrassing as hell. "Your Honor," David stated, "my client is being harassed and stalked by her biological mother who has made threats and disrupted her workplace." He presented all of the evidence, including the crazy text messages, the phone record showing dozens of calls from different numbers, and witness statements from my office staff about the scene Mom had caused. We were required to return to court, but this time, it was a different judge. The judge represented a woman in her 50s who appeared to have seen everything. "Mrs. Green, you lost your lawsuit against your daughter. That should have been the end of it. Instead, you've chosen to harass and intimidate her." "She's my daughter," Mom yelled. "I have a right to talk to her." The judge did not buy it. The attorney for Mom tried to argue that all she wanted was a relationship with her daughter, but the judge did not buy it. "You gave up that right 22 years ago when you abandoned her," the judge replied in a chilly tone, "and you certainly do not have the right to stalk and threaten her." The judge approved the restraining order, which said that Mom was required to maintain a distance of at least 600 yards from me, my house, and my business. She was unable to phone me, send me a text message or get in touch with me through third parties. "You will be in violation of this injunction, Mrs. Your arrest and charges of contempt of court are going to be brought against you, Green. Does it make sense to you?" My mother only scowled at me from the other side of the courtroom. Her spouse appeared to be ashamed, and the children appeared to be perplexed and distressing. For a moment, I was almost sad for them. Not quite. That occurred around half a year ago. Since then, I have not had any communication from my mother. It is unknown to me if she is still residing in the same location or whether the children are doing well. Honestly, I have no interest in finding out. I am occasionally asked if I feel guilty about the fact that I did not assist those children. There is no wrongdoing. Those who have had such kind of mother claim that they did not choose to have her. Indeed, they are correct. It's true that those children didn't do anything wrong, but I didn't either. When I was 8 years old, I did not seek to be abandoned. There was no way that I would have asked for my mother to vanish from my life for 22 years and then suddenly resurface and demand money. The life that we enjoyed was built by Dad, who put in a lot of hard work. The departure of his mother might have caused him to disintegrate, but instead, he channeled all of that suffering into the creation of something more positive. Through his own labor and self-sacrifice, he was able to earn every single dollar that he left for me. A lady who treated me like garbage is not going to get it from me. I am not going to give it to her. On occasion, I find myself wondering what might have transpired if my mother had approached me in a different manner. Would she have shown up to the burial of her father and shown her regret? In the event that she had requested to partake in a cup of coffee and discuss the past. If she had admitted that she had wronged me and made an effort to make restitution for her actions. It is not true that she accomplished any of anything. She made the decision that I owed her anything after seeing monetary signs. Despite the fact that she had a deep-seated hatred for her father, she thought that she was entitled to his financial support. Occasionally, I find myself thinking about those children, Ethan, Olivia, and Ben. I am hoping that they are doing well. I pray that they are able to acquire the knowledge they require and mature into individuals who are superior to their mother. It is not my obligation to deal with it. It is my duty to pay tribute to my father's memory and to lead the kind of life that he would have desired for me. The reason he left everything to me was because he loved me and believed that I would handle it in the appropriate manner. The construction company has been successfully managed by me. As CEO, Chris is doing an excellent job, and we are even growing into new areas through his efforts. With the remaining funds, I have made several astute transactions and investments. When I want to contribute to causes that are important to me, I travel. I like to live a comfortable life without being flashy about it. I am now dating someone. In addition to being a teacher, his name is Jack. The fact that he is unaware of all the money is something that I find appealing. He likes me not because of what I inherited but because of who I am. Jack would have been liked by Dad. He is sincere and kind. The sort of man who constructs things rather than pulling them down is the kind of man. Every day, I remember my father. On a monthly basis, I pay a visit to his grave and share with him the latest developments in my life, including Jack, the business, and my life in general. In spite of the fact that he is unable to hear me, I still feel a connection to him. At times, the house has a sense of emptiness. Despite its size, it was designed to accommodate a family. It is possible that Jack and I will one day be able to populate it with our own children. That is something that Dad would have cherished. When it comes to my mother, I don't think about her very often anymore. To me, she is an unknown person. Only our DNA is the same, but that's all. The elements that comprise a true family go beyond DNA. When you are in need of them, real family members are there for you. They will not desert you and then demand payment 22 years later if they are your true relatives. My father was the only member of my family. In my eyes, Grandma was my true family. Perhaps at some point in the future, Jack will be as well. There is no change in the status of the restraining order. My desk drawer is where I save the documents in case something happens. My guess is that I won't require it at all. I believe that my mother has now understood that I am not to be considered her retirement plan. Not anymore am I feeling furious. Although I was for a time, rage is a draining emotion. Right now when I think of her, I don't feel anything at all. She is not meaningful to me in any way. My father's company is my responsibility, and I also have a relationship to tend to and a future to construct. That is what counts at this point. At times others suggest that I ought to forgive her. And that harboring resentment is detrimental to my health. As for me, I have no ill will against you. Simply put, I am defending myself against someone who has demonstrated that she cannot be trusted. When it comes to forgiving, there is a distinction between just being dumb. For my own mental well-being, I decided to forgive her a very long time ago. Forgiveness, however, does not imply that I have to allow her to return to my life or give her the money that belonged to my father. My sister locked my son in a car to punish him over a chocolate bar. Her cruel act led to a shocking legal battle that no one saw coming. After my mother informed me that she had left my 6-year-old kid at home with my sister Laura, I went around hunting for him everywhere. Then, as I passed by Laura's car, an uncomfortable sensation overtook me. I leaned down and glanced through the glass, and what I saw inside chilled my blood. My kid, Ethan, was slumped down in the back seat. His small body didn't move. His face was glowing red, and his hair was drenched in sweat. I hastily reached for the door handle, but the car was locked. I yanked hard, hoping the door would open. My heart was racing in my chest, and all I could do was hope to God that my son would be well. Why was my son in Laura's car? What the heck happened? I just wanted to share the tale I am telling today. This is a narrative that reveals a grim reality. Money has the power to transform people's actual nature, including those with whom you share blood. Before I go into the details, I'd want to thank you for listening to our tale today. I wish you a calm day. Hello everyone. My name is Matthew, and I am 35 years old. I work as the business director for a real estate company in California. I'm a single father. My wife perished during the epidemic in 2020. She died when Ethan was just 2, leaving a hole inside me that nothing can fill. After my wife died, I put all of my love into my kid. That young child is the sole reason I get up every morning and struggle through life. Fortunately, my folks live nearby, only approximately 16 miles away. They have been quite helpful to me in caring for Ethan over the years, and I frequently send the little kid down with them on weekends when I need to meet with clients. My parents had 2 children. Aside from myself, there's my sister Laura. She also brings her daughter, Lily, to see her mother and father on weekends. Laura is 4 years younger than I am. She did not attend college and married rather young. Her husband has a regular job and makes little money, so their life has always been difficult. Previously our relationship was normal, not particularly tight but without big issues. But 2 years ago, things changed entirely. And I am certain of one thing. I will never, ever forgive her for what she did to my son. The family turmoil occurred over a weekend. In November 2023 my wife had been gone for 3 years, and my kid Ethan had just turned 6. That day, at 9 a.m., I dropped Ethan off at his parents' house and asked them to keep him while I went to see a client. As a real estate business director, I frequently meet with clients or customers on weekends. If a customer wishes to meet, I'm available at any time. The day before, I phoned Mom and Dad about minding Ethan, and they agreed immediately quickly. When I arrived at Mom and Dad's house that morning, Laura's car had already been parked in the driveway. Laura and Lily had been there since 7:30 according to their parents. Laura was not delighted when she saw me walk in. She gave me a quick glance, then turned around and walked into the living room without saying anything. That attitude bothered me, but I didn't give it much thought because I had an important meeting coming up. After holding Ethan, Mom rubbed my shoulder and said gently, "Don't worry. Just go handle your business. We'll take care of Ethan." Dad nodded in agreement and added, "Just focus on work. Ethan may remain here all day if necessary." I thanked Mom and Dad. Then I went down to embrace Ethan, kissed his forehead and told him, "Be good, okay? I'll be back in a little bit." Ethan nodded, that innocent smile spreading across his face as he whispered to me, "Yes, Dad. I'll be fine." I left feeling at ease, but throughout the journey I was restless and apprehensive. Something about Laura's gaze made me nervous, but I couldn't describe why. I had no clue my gut intuition would be confirmed in the most terrible way conceivable. After 3.5 hours of customer meetings, I returned to Mom and Dad's house about midday. The meeting went well and I had brought 2 chocolate pastries with me. One for Ethan and one for Lily. After parking, I observed that Mom and Dad's cars were not in the driveway, only Laura's. I stepped in and noticed Lily and Laura seated on the couch, watching television. Laura rolled her eyes and returned her attention to the television. What drew my attention was Lily's terrified expression. The small girl avoided eye contact with me in an unusual way, and I couldn't see my 6-year-old son anywhere. Walking past Lily and Laura, I moved through the house, opening doors and yelling out loud, "Ethan, where are you? Dad is home. I brought you chocolate cake." I phoned numerous times, but Ethan did not respond. At this time I assumed Ethan had gone out with my folks. I immediately took out my phone and contacted Mom. When I asked about Ethan, Mom said we left him at home with Laura. We went to the store to get some items and are now on our way back. During this time I began to feel worried. I puzzled why Mom and Dad agreed to care Ethan but then abandoned my kid with Laura. They knew Laura and I did not get along. I swiftly entered the living room and stood in front of Laura. I shouted, "Laura, where's my son?" Laura merely sat there on the couch, eyes fixed to the TV, and responded in an uncaring, chilly tone. "I don't know, maybe the kids are playing in the backyard." After she said that, I ran around seeking for my son everywhere. Backyard, storage space, garden nook, and beneath tables. I cried out, "Ethan, where are you?" But there was no response from my kid. Then, as I passed by Laura's car, I had this unpleasant feeling, like if some unseen force was drawing me toward it. I took a step closer, leaned down, and peeked through the glass. What I saw inside made my blood turn cold. My kid, Ethan, was slumped down in the back seat. His face was very crimson. His lips were chapped and dried, and his hair was drenched with perspiration. His small body remained still, like a discarded toy. At that point, the world around me crumbled. I instantly grabbed the door handle and tugged hard. But the vehicle was locked. I yanked the door many more times, thinking it would spring open. I yelled, my voice choked with fright as I attempted to open the door. "Ethan, this is Dad. Wake up, buddy." My heart was hammering in my chest. Cold sweat spilled all over my body. All I could do was pray to God that my son will be well. After numerous unsuccessful tries to yank the door, I lifted my hand and struck the window hard. 5 fists in a succession. Yet the glass remained unbroken, as if it were mocking me. My knuckles began bleeding, yet I felt no discomfort. Fear had eaten out all other sensations. I dashed into the home and shouted at Laura. "Where are your car keys? Give them to me now." Laura remained immobile on the couch. Her gaze was fixed on the television screen and she responded in this alarmingly uncaring tone. "Find them yourself. I don't remember where I put them." Laura's attitude at the time made me want to lose my head. But I forced myself to keep my anger under control because I knew that protecting my baby was the most essential thing at the time. Right after that, I dashed inside the storage area where Dad stored gardening tools and sports equipment. My gaze swiftly searched the collection of items and settled on a baseball bat. 10 seconds later, I dashed out of the storage room, baseball bat in hand. Laura got up as she saw me rush out. She yelled, "Matthew! What are you doing?" I ignored her cry and continued running for the door. When I arrived to the automobile, I stood square in front of the driver's side window. Laura had made it to the front porch by then. She cried loudly and frantically, "Matthew, stop, the car keys are right here." But it was too late. I swung the bat hard against the windshield. Just 2 swings and the glass cracked, sending bits flying everywhere. I reached inside, ignored the wounds on my arm, and pressed the button to unlock the automobile doors. After the car doors were unlocked, I tossed the bat to one side, dashed to the rear seat, opened the door, and grabbed Ethan out of the mobile oven. My youngster was in a bad state. His skin felt very heated, as if he had a severe temperature. His respiration was faint, shallow, and fast. His lips were chapped and dried. His eyelids were clamped tight, and his entire body was saturated in perspiration, despite evidence of acute dehydration. The young kid became limp in my grasp, like a faded flower. My heart felt like it was being crushed. My voice choked as I whispered, "Ethan, Dad's here. Open your eyes. Ethan, Dad's here. Don't leave me. I'm begging you." After hearing what I stated, Ethan slowly opened his eyes. His eyes were dull. He took a while to recognize me. He mumbled, his voice hoarse, "Dad? I was so scared, Aunt Laura." Before he could continue his statement, Ethan collapsed in my arms again. I brought him to the front porch, where there was shade, and quickly dialed 911. As soon as the operator answered the phone, I reported my son's problem and requested an ambulance. After I provided them the address, the 911 operator stated that medical people would arrive shortly. Waiting for the ambulance took the longest time of my life. Every second seemed like a century. I prayed my wife's soul in heaven to look after our son. Laura and Lily were both standing on the front porch. Laura's face became cold as she noticed Ethan laying still. For the first time since I had returned home, I noticed worry on her face. But at the time, I didn't have the time or mental space to care about her. "My son needs me." Less than 10 minutes later, the ambulance and medical staff arrived. 2 paramedics swiftly assessed Ethan's condition. They measured his temperature and examined his pulse. After checking his vital signs, they promptly loaded my kid into an ambulance and drove him to the hospital. I sat next to him in the ambulance, gripping Ethan's small hand tightly the entire while. The paramedics were continually monitoring his status, their looks strained yet concentrated. Ethan was transferred to the emergency department around 10 minutes later. The door shut in front of me, and all I could do was stand outside in the corridor, powerless and desperate. I sat in a frigid chair, my hands cradling my head. My imagination conjured visions of my son slumped down in the car. Images of his chapped lips and feeble voice. I prayed to God. I prayed to my wife. I prayed to anybody who could hear. "Please save my son." 30 minutes later, the emergency room door opened. The doctor glanced at me, his expression softening, and said, "The little boy is out of danger. Fortunately, you found him and brought him in just in time." That was when I let out a sigh of relief. My legs nearly gave out from the relief. I clutched the doctor's hand hard, my voice muffled with sorrow. "Thank you, doctor. Thank you." Once I had calmed down, the doctor resumed his pronouncement. His voice became very serious. The hospital informed the police and Child Protective Services about the boy's condition. They'll be coming to gather information on the event once he's more stable tomorrow morning. After hearing what the doctor stated, I nodded and thanked him. I still couldn't see Ethan since he hadn't woken up yet. My parents came in the hospital corridor shortly after the doctor had departed. Their expressions were filled with horror. Both Mom and Dad seemed pallid as ghosts. I'm guessing they already understood what had transpired and how terrible the event was. When I saw them, I became enraged. I stood up straight, looked them in the eyes and said angrily, "You guys have the nerve to show up here." My mother fell into tears. She hurried up to hold my hands and sobbed, "Matthew, I'm so sorry. I didn't know things would turn out this bad. My father stood there, his face ashen. He attempted to remain cool, but his voice trembled as he told me, "We just went to the store for a while, and we thought leaving Ethan with Laura would be okay." Hearing those words, the rage within me erupted like fire. I moved Mom's hand away. My voice is as icy as ice. "Fine. You guys thought it would be fine. My son almost died. He almost died from being locked in a car under the sun for almost an hour. And you're telling me it would be fine?" My mother was breaking down. She continued saying, "I'm sorry." My dad remained silent. For the first time in my life, I realized he had nothing to say. I looked away, my voice icy. "Go home. I don't want to see you guys right now." However, they did not go. They just stood in a corner of the corridor, waiting for Ethan to wake up. I didn't look at them, but I knew they were still there, silent and regretful. I did notice Laura's absence. She did not show up at the hospital. Not one phone call or text message. 2 hours after arriving at the hospital, Ethan awoke. When the nurse told me, I raced inside the room. My son lay there with his eyes wide, staring about in uncertainty. But when he saw me, his eyes brightened up, and he shouted out weakly, "Dad!" I raced to his bedside, grabbed him, and couldn't stop crying. My voice strangled with passion. "My boy, Dad's here, Dad's here." After the doctor rechecked him and established Ethan's stability, my parents were permitted to visit. They stood at the foot of the bed, their expressions filled with grief. My mother went forward, her voice shaking as she told Ethan, "I'm sorry, sweetie. I failed to protect you." My father also spoke out, his voice thick and gruff. "I'm sorry, Ethan. I was irresponsible." I likewise stooped down and stared into my son's eyes, my voice heavy with regret. "Sorry, Dad, son. Dad wasn't there for you when you needed me." Ethan glanced at me, his eyes filled with anxiety. His voice was low as he told me, "Dad, I was so scared. Aunt Laura had locked me in the car." Ethan's statement stunned everyone in the room. My mother covered her mouth. My father stood there, his body like stone. I tried to remain cool, caressed his hair and softly murmured, "Don't worry. Dad's here now. You rest some more. You don't need to tell us everything right now." Ethan nodded, his eyes gradually closing from exhaustion. When he fell asleep, my father stepped next to me, his voice shaking but full of determination. "If Laura did this, I won't let it go. Even if she is my daughter, I will not forgive her." That night, all of us stayed at the hospital to care for Ethan, and I sat by his bed, holding his hand tightly all night, while my parents sat in chairs in the room. I didn't say anything to Dad because I was too exhausted to argue or blame anyone. The following morning, around 9 a.m., 2 police officers and a worker from Child Protective Services entered Ethan's special care room. Emily, a female worker from CPS, said to me in a gentle and patient tone, "We need to take a statement from Ethan about what happened." After I encouraged him, Ethan bravely told them everything. His voice was still shaking, but he tried to explain every detail clearly. He said to them in a soft voice, "When Grandpa and Grandma went out to the store, I saw a chocolate bar sitting on the kitchen counter. I asked Aunt Laura if I may have the chocolate bar, but she declined. She said it belonged to Lily." Ethan paused for a moment, his eyes looking at me as if he was looking for comfort. I nodded encouragingly and he continued, "I wanted the chocolate so bad that I took that chocolate bar and ate it even though Aunt Laura didn't agree." Hearing Ethan's words, the CPS worker took careful notes, occasionally nodding to encourage him to continue. After a few seconds of silence, Ethan continued his story, his voice getting smaller. "When Aunt Laura found out, I cried and apologized to her, but she wouldn't accept it. Then Aunt Laura dragged me out to her car and pushed me into the back seat. I begged her to forgive me, but she wouldn't listen, and she locked the doors. Before closing the door, she told me, 'Ethan, you need to be taught a lesson.' My mother burst into tears when she heard that my father had pampered you much too much. She had to cover her mouth with her hand to keep from crying out loud. My father's hands were clenched into fists, and his face was red with rage. I wasn't doing much better. Every word my son said was like a knife stabbing into my heart. If I weren't busy caring for Ethan, and the cops weren't there, I'd rush to Laura's house and give her what she deserved." After a few seconds of quiet to gather his composure, Ethan spoke again, his voice weak and broken. "I sat in the car. The temperature rose quickly. I yelled aloud and knocked on the windows, but no one answered the door. I shouted for Aunt Laura, but she did not come out. I became so exhausted and heated. I can't recall what occurred after that. I remember when I woke up, I was lying on a bed with doctors examining me. After hearing everything Ethan told us, the room fell silent, and I hugged my son tightly, trying to hold back the rage that was boiling inside me. My mother was crying quietly, and my father stood there like a statue, but I could see his body shaking with rage. After Ethan's statement, the police and CPS worker proceeded to take statements from my parents and me right there in that room. I told them everything from when I got home, found Ethan in the car and rushed him to the emergency room. My parents also told their part, admitting that they went to the store and left Ethan at home with Laura without asking my opinion. After hearing everything, the CPS worker looked at my parents with serious eyes and told them, "You two will also be involved in this case because you accepted responsibility for watching the boy, but then abandoned him, allowing Laura to harm him." My parents made no attempt to avoid responsibility. My father stood up straight, his voice low but clear. "We're ready to accept full responsibility, including going to jail. We ask for one thing. Don't prevent us from seeing our grandchild." My mother nodded, tears still streaming down her cheeks, and said, "We see we were wrong. We accept any consequence." Seeing my parents recognize their error made me feel a bit touched within. Unlike Laura, who deliberately locked my son in the car as punishment, the police and CPS did not have a malicious intent to harm my son. One of the two officers looked at me with understanding but serious eyes as they prepared to leave after taking all of our statements. He told me, "I realize you're upset, but I have to implore you not to take any retribution on Laura." Even though I truly wanted to seek vengeance on Laura, I knew the officer wasn't fooling around, and I didn't want Ethan to have a father who was in prison. And worse, if I went to jail, I'd lose custody of my son. I forced myself to remain calm, swallowing the rage that was boiling inside me. I had no idea that in just a few days, someone would teach Laura a lesson she'd remember for the rest of her life. 2 days later, the CPS worker returned to the hospital to document information about Ethan's health condition. Emily, the CPS worker I'd met before, informed me that she and the police had gone to Laura's house to take her statement. She sat down next to Ethan's bed where he was sleeping, and quietly told me, "Matthew, I want to update you on the progress of the case." I nodded, bracing myself for what I was about to hear. Emily continued, "At first, Laura denied everything because your parents' house doesn't have security cameras. She blamed Ethan, saying that the little boy had gotten into the car to play by himself and locked himself in. She even accused you of being behind it and directing Ethan to lie. She made up this story that you always hated her. So, you did this to get revenge." I couldn't say anything when I heard what Emily was telling me. Anger and disgust rose inside me. How could someone use an innocent child and then turn around and blame that same child? But what Emily said next surprised me. Her voice softened slightly, but those lies were exposed by an unexpected witness. Emily claimed, "Lily, Laura's 7-year-old daughter, informed the police her mother was lying." My heart appeared to skip a beat. Lily, that tiny kid, had risen up to tell the truth, even though she knew it would upset her own mother. Emily added, "And what Lily told us matched exactly what Ethan had stated." Mia confirmed that her mother had locked Ethan in the car after Ethan ate the chocolate bar. The little girl even said she tried to beg her mom to let Ethan out, but Laura wouldn't listen. Hearing those words, complex emotions surged through me. Relief that the truth had been revealed, heartbreak for Mia, a 7-year-old who had to testify against her own mother, and rage at Laura for putting her own daughter in that situation. I was relieved that the truth had been revealed, but the pain and fury remained, smoldering like hot coals under ash, as I watched my son sleep peacefully in Ethan's care room. Emily promised me that the criminal trial would take place soon, and that Ethan would receive justice. I also reminded you that you should not take vengeance against Laura. After 4 days in the hospital, Ethan had fully recovered, and we were able to return home. My parents arrived to pick us up that day, but instead of taking us home as I expected, they turned in a different direction. I recognized the road leading to Laura's house, and after parking in front of it, Dad got out and brought a large bag. I had no idea what Dad had brought inside. He just looked at me with resolute eyes and said, "You and Ethan, follow me into the house. Let me handle everything." Laura's face paled as she saw us arrive, and she stopped at the entrance, mouth wide but unable to say anything. My parents strode directly into the living room, without waiting for her permission. I led Ethan by the hand behind them. In the living room, Dad placed the bag on the table and opened it, revealing a massive pile of chocolate bars, which I estimated to be nearly 180. He turned the bag upside down, and the chocolate bars spilled out onto the table. Dad looked straight at Laura's face. Laura's face turned pale as she stammered, her voice trembling. "Eat all of it? How could I possibly consume it all?" Dad's voice tightened. You were ready to lock Ethan in a car for one chocolate bar and nearly kill him. Now I've bought chocolate for you to consume. Laura began to scream and beg. Dad, I can't eat all of them. Please, Dad. My mother intervened and I expected her to defend Laura as usual, but I was mistaken. She aimed her finger at Laura's face, her voice frigid, and said, If you don't eat, don't call us Mom and Dad anymore. Laura collapsed, dropped to her knees in front of my parents, tears flowing down her face, and then her shaky hands picked up chocolate bars one by one and began eating them. My father stood there saying, Eat quicker. I purchased about 180 chocolate bars for you. Laura was weeping as she ate. After approximately 30 bars, she couldn't eat anymore. Her face was green, and she looked like she was going to vomit. Dad continued saying, Keep eating. There's still enough left, Laura replied, her voice choking between sobs. Dad, I was mistaken. I was mistaken. I can't eat anymore. Lily bolted out of the bedroom. The young girl went to my father, her eyes red and swollen, her little voice asking, Grandpa, please forgive my mother. My mom understands she was wrong. My father gazed down at Lily, his expression softening somewhat, and he knelt down to touch the young girl's head before hugging her and saying nothing further. The room fell silent. Only Laura's sobbing echoed. About 5 minutes later my father stood up, looked at Laura with eyes full of pain and disappointment and said to her, I'm sorry, but from now on, you're not my daughter anymore. Laura lifted her head, her eyes swollen from crying, and Dad continued, You haven't apologized to Ethan once since I walked in. What I needed was not for you to consume chocolate. What I wanted was for you to apologize to Ethan, but you didn't. Laura rushed over and hugged my father's legs, crying and begging, Dad, don't forsake me. I was mistaken. I'm sorry. My father shoved her away from his legs, his expression as frigid as stone. Laura appeared to comprehend something, and she hastily came up to Ethan, knelt in front of my kid, her voice choking. Ethan, I'm sorry. I was mistaken. I'm sorry. Ethan glanced up at me, his eyes filled with uncertainty and worry. I didn't say anything, just gripped his hand securely and went out of the home. When the judge inquired about the true reason for locking Ethan in the car, Laura finally confessed the truth in a small trembling voice. I did it to get revenge on my brother. And the entire courtroom fell silent. I had managed not to beat the hell out of Laura, and I was hoping that the law would protect my son. A few seconds later the judge said, Revenge for what? Laura hung her head, her voice choking. 2 months ago, I asked him to lend me $125,000. But he refused. The judge looked at her in disbelief. Hearing those words made me sick to my stomach. I had that money, but I couldn't lend it because it was what I planned to use for Ethan's future, his education, his life later on. Laura was sentenced to 13 years in jail after being found guilty of willfully hurting a kid and endangering a child's life. Because I refused, Laura took her rage out on my innocent child. The court made the decision after evaluating all of the facts and testimony. Laura had to pay Ethan $250,000 in compensation, which included medical costs, psychological trauma treatment costs, and emotional damage compensation. After the judge announced the sentence, Laura was led away, and as she passed where I was sitting, she looked at me with regretful eyes, but I turned away. My parents, who had agreed to watch Ethan and then abandoned him, were also punished by the judge. They were barred from having any contact with Ethan for a year, and they were required to take child care responsibility classes. My mother sobbed when she heard the decision, and my father simply nodded in acquiescence, his face saddened, but he said nothing. When I left the courthouse, I felt relieved that justice had been done and that my kid had been safeguarded. It's been more than 2 years since that dreadful day. Ethan, who is now 8 years old and has undergone numerous therapy sessions to overcome his trauma, was initially terrified of cars, particularly black cars like Laura's. He also had nightmares and would wake up in the middle of the night crying and calling my name. However, with the therapist's patience and my love, Ethan gradually recovered. After the contact ban was lifted, my parents came to see me and apologized once more. After a year of deliberation, I decided to forgive them. They had made a mistake, but they had not done so maliciously. They had paid for it, and more importantly, they truly regretted it. After I forgave them, they came to see us on a regular basis, and Ethan loved seeing Grandpa and Grandma. Laura, on the other hand, has been in prison for 3 years, and none of us went to see her. My parents had disowned her, as they had promised, and she was no longer their daughter. Laura's daughter, Lily, is being cared for by her father. On weekends, Lily still visits my parents' house and she and Ethan continue to play together. I don't blame Lily. She's just an innocent child, and she bravely told the truth to save Ethan. Through this story, I have some advice for you. First, teach your children how to protect themselves at a young age. To ensure your child's safety, you should teach them how to unlock car doors from the inside. Additionally, you should never leave your child alone in a car for even a minute, as the temperature inside can quickly rise and become life-threatening. Finally, you should exercise caution when leaving your child in the care of others, including relatives. When I tell this story, many people believe I did the right thing by refusing to lend Laura money, and I have the right to protect my child's assets. However, others believe I am to blame for the tragedy, claiming that if I had lent Laura the $125,000, none of this would have happened. My ex-wife has been continuously harassing me. I'm overwhelmed and have even considered giving up custody of my kids just to make it all stop. Original post. I don't know where to begin. I was married for 13 years. Have 2 small children, 4 and 6. And after being divorced, I am now remarried to a wonderful woman, Donna. My ex will not stop harassing me. I have to communicate with her for the kids. But it was so contentious that the court finally ordered all communication to go through an online site, and I had to change my phone number and move. It was that bad. I had my kids this weekend. Things went great and I went and saw my family. No incidents, we had a great time. Then I got this email. Jill and Marvin, kids report that they were in a traffic accident with you this weekend, in the truck. They both report that the loud, obscene exchange between their father and the ABC towing driver scared them. They both report that they were bitten by Greg's dog, Murphy, during their visit at your folks' house this weekend. This is the second dog they have both reported biting them. I have also posted their reports that they have been bitten by a large dog named Betsy, at your in-laws' house. They have traumatic memories of metal being scraped out of your leg. I hope that you recover and get back to your job quickly. I hope that Donna is okay. They report that you have trouble walking. This is consistent with behavior I observed at drop-off on Sunday night. You didn't get out of your new car, and it appeared very awkward for you to unbuckle their booster seat belts from the driver's seat. I need to know about these things, please. Dog bites are notoriously dirty and prone to infections. Just because our children didn't appear to be as seriously injured as you were in the truck accident, doesn't mean that they couldn't be stiff and sore and possibly have internal injuries for which I need to be observing. At least I need to understand why they were stiff and sore and acting more fearful than usual when they came home. Their mild to moderate bruising and scrapes, and the chunks of skin missing from their hands and fingers, are consistent with their reports of the accident and the dog bites. I will take Jill and Marvin to the pediatrician walk-in clinic to rule out any unseen injuries and infections. It would be nice if you would call or email the doctor's office, and tell them what you can about the accident and the dog bites. It could help rule out tests and treatments that might not be necessary. It would also be nice if you would pay your half of their medical expenses. Especially because the accident and the dog bites happened when they were with you. Today is Jill's first day of school. I could have taken them to the doctor 2 days ago, if you had shared that they were bitten and in a traffic accident that was bad enough required a tow truck for the truck, and medical care for you. If you want to drive the kids to Santa Barbara and back on a weekend, expose them to animals that aren't safe for children, and fight with tow truck drivers in front of them, I cannot prevent that. But what happens to their little growing bodies, and the events that are being imprinted on their sweet, innocent minds, is very much my business. Please share all of the information regarding what happened to our children in the truck accident. Please share all of the information regarding the bites from the dogs. As a mother, it is very worrisome to hear my preschooler and my first grader recount the dangerous things that are happening to them. But it is even more worrisome that my co-parent withholds vital information about their health. Jill and Marvin deserve to know that their parents are working together to take care of them. Thank you. Rest of the post, I don't even know where to begin. The dog that was there had no teeth. Didn't bite them. And couldn't have even if it wanted to. My in-law's dog is dead. I was never in an accident. There was no tow truck. All of this is false. I can't even find a shred of a real event that could have gotten twisted. This comes on the heels of 4 days ago, her trying to corner me into signing away 30% of my custody agreement, and refusing to let me even look at the details of the paperwork. I am so frazzled by all of this that, at times, I think about signing away my parental rights just to not have the stress. But I don't want my children thinking I don't care for them and abandoning them. How do you reason with this level of crazy? Any advice is welcome. I need help managing this. TLDR, trying to deal with a crazy ex, and barely holding it together for the sake of the kids. Relevant comments. Commenter, why are you so cowed by your ex-wife that her telling you to sign something you don't want to sign causes you stress? It shouldn't be that hard to say no. Oop. That is a brief snapshot. When it's every day, or every other day, it gets stressful. I never know what accusation is going to be lobbed at me next. When they divorced, 2 years ago. To a deleted comment, yeah. I already spent almost all of my savings to get the custody agreement I have. Dropping another $20,000 would be tough. To pay for I'd have to pick up another job, which would then not allow me to access the custody I am wanting. Commenter. Turn this over to your lawyer. Please fight this fight. I know it is hard, but can you imagine growing up with a mother who chooses to rewrite history and reality to suit her whims? Oop. Lawyers have been contacted. No response in 3 days, emailed with this craziness this morning. Still crickets. Commenter. Their mild to moderate bruising and scrapes, and the chunks of skin missing from their hands and fingers, are consistent with their reports of the accident and the dog bites. So do these things not exist or what? Oop, I didn't see anything. A scrape on the foot from the flip-flop one was wearing, but other than that, nothing. Commenter. How does Donna feel about all of this? Oop, pissed. It is a major source of conflict in our marriage. Actually, it is just about the only thing we ever argue about. Tangential post. Title: Legal rights surrounding a primary custody parent who after 4 attempts is not picking up her children from me, the non-custodial parent. California. I am in Southern California. I don't know what to do here. I am the non-custodial parent. I have had the kids for 1 week, 4 and 6, during Christmas break. Due to the high conflict nature of my ex, we have been assigned a co-parenting person to help mediate. On the 30th we were supposed to exchange the kids back to her care. I showed up 15 minutes early to the location, and we waited for 1 hour and 7 minutes before giving up and leaving. She had been claiming she was right there for over 35 minutes. The location was an IHOP, 300 feet from the freeway exit. After I left I got a slew of messages calling me all sorts of names and claiming that she had just shown up, but that I had left. This song and dance has happened before. She said she would meet me anywhere, just to let her know where. This time I called her bluff and picked a location 2 miles from my home, and told her, the kids are hungry and tired of waiting. I'm taking them to my house. When you arrive at the location, 11 miles from the IHOP, text me and let me know, and I'll bring them right over. I sent her the location 5 times in text and twice via email. 4.5 hours later. Nothing. I then told her that we could meet at the agreed upon location at 11 a.m., the next day for the exchange, just 1 day later than planned. When I woke up in the morning she demanded I drive them 1 hour to a new location, because she had a 103-degree fever and couldn't drive. There of course was a back and forth about her ability to care for children if she was too sick to drive. Ultimately she failed to arrive at the location at 11 a.m. At 5 p.m., I got a doctor's note stating that she only had a cold and was fine to care for the children. I didn't ask for this. I then called her and we had a heated back and forth, but ultimately I relented and told her that I would bring them to a location that she chose. 1 hour away and 1 mile from her house. Under the agreement that she would show up this time. Before leaving I sent an email confirming the location and time. That was sent at 7:48 p.m. We arrived at the location at 8:51 p.m., and texted to let her know we were there. What happened next was so frustrating. No response to any text was ever given. Every time I would send a text, I would get an email. All of them stating the same thing. That she would not leave her house until I verified my location. I sent her 6 different responses to emails telling her where I was. All I would get in response is more messages asking me to confirm my location. I even made a phone call telling her where I was. Unfortunately at this point I was in such disbelief I did yell at her and tell her to get her ass down here. Not my finest hour. At 10:21 p.m. With kids in high anxiety and crying that their mom had forgotten them again, we left and drove the hour back home. I have now messages accusing me of child abduction. I don't know what to do. I am not subjecting my kids to this again. I can't bear to watch them check every car and get excited. I think I see her over and over again for hours while she plays these games. My worry is that the cops are going to come knock down my door when I have done everything I can to make these exchanges work. Is this enough to have my lawyers file an emergency hearing to get primary custody? I am in limbo right now since neither my lawyers nor the co-parenting person will be in the office until the 3rd. TLDR mother has missed 4 exchanges in 2 days. What are my legal rights in this situation? Relevant comments. Commenter. Why can't you just drop the kids off at her house if she's not feeling well enough to drive? It sounds like she's playing games and you're letting her. Oop. She has told me over and over again not to come to her house, under any circumstance. Commenter. Was the mediator alerted to this situation when it was occurring? If not, why not? OP. She doesn't check her email or phone over the weekend. Commenter. Keep the kids, stop dealing with her shit and file for full emergency custody this week. OP. She is now stating that she is 5 miles away, waiting for me to deliver the kids. This was not pre-arranged. Deleted post. Editor's note. Thanks to mods for helping me recover this. Title. California. Not sure what my options are with a crazy ex-wife scenario. Literally, I am in the process of a 7:30 evaluation for primary custody of my kids. 2 kids 7 and 5 today, was another doozy of an exchange, and I am fearful for the kids. I don't know what my options are here, if any. My ex was 53 minutes late to the exchange today. At 4:24 she sent me a text stating she was exiting the freeway that is 2 miles from the meeting spot arranged in co-parenting for today. She doesn't show up until 4:53. Exchange goes okay, but I know something is coming, because if she is ever in the wrong she has to lash out and blame someone else or invent a scenario where she is the victim. I had to wait all of 4 minutes. I got a text stating, I just drove by your car, and the back seat was empty. Where are the kids? I said, wasn't my car, I have 2 kids. Then knowing where this was going sent a picture of them in the car. Response. When did you have time to take this? Because I had plenty of time to look at the stoplight. You were alone. It's okay if Donna, my current wife, has them. It's totally legal, just weird to hide it. I then called her. She answered. I said, hi, she said hi, and then I asked the kids to say hi. I then asked the kids, where are we kids? At this point she started saying, hello, hello? Is there anyone there? I then got a text. Thank you for the phone call, but there was no sound. I responded. I am turning off my phone now. These accusations are bizarre. I got back. Not as bizarre as pretending to pick up our kids. Just tell me who has them. I called again. Immediately with the hello, hello? I knew for sure it was a game at this point. I just ended the call. She responded, you can't just keep ending conversations because you don't want to deal with the facts. If this turns into another 49-hour abduction like New Year's, I will definitely file a report. Read the last post on that incident here. This is next level insane. I am terrified for the kids. This is like raising to the level that she needs to be committed. Thoughts apart from just continuing with the psych eval I already have going? Relevant comment. OP. We went back to family court. Court ordered a psych evaluation. That process is about 6 months. We are 1 month into that. Deleted post 2. Okay, I want to give the timeline so people understand the full issue I am up against. Basically my children were hidden from me for 55 hours during my parenting time. Their location and the whole situation. Well, I was lied to about the whole time. Been divorced 5 years. 30% custody exchange was to be on December 28th at 12 p.m., for my half of Christmas break. Timeline. December 26th, 4 p.m., get a picture of where they are spending Christmas, X and 2 kids 9 and 7, showing large snowfall and a message saying they are not sure when the snow plows will start. December 27th, 12 p.m. Another picture and message stating the same thing, except in the picture you can tell cars have left and come back from first picture. 6 p.m. I tell her, if you get out tonight, I'll come get the kids as planned, in court order, from your house. 12 p.m., December 28th, if you do not get out until the morning, do you want to just bring them by my house, on the way from where she is coming from? I get a thumbs up to that message. 8 p.m., I ask if she got out. No response. December 28th, 9 a.m. I ask for a status update so I know if I need to drive the hour to her house. No response. 10:20 a.m. I ask again for an update. No response. 11 a.m., I leave to drive the hour for exchange, not knowing info. 12 p.m. Exchange time. Arrive at house. Text that I have arrived. Her car is there. Her mom's car is not. She lives with her mom. I videotape the time on the vehicle, verbally notate the time and date. Show her car and the darkened house on the videotape. I assume she has driven up with her mom to where she is snowed in. 12:10 p.m., finally got a response saying they are still snowed in. No plows yet. 4 p.m. I offer that since my parents are driving down, and they have a large truck they could swing by and get the kids on their way to my house tomorrow. No response until the next day. Note, I check all roads in the area. All are showing being open and flowing traffic. I even verify with live traffic cams from 1/2 mile from where she is that roads are cleared and cars are driving. I have screenshots of this and the video is timestamped. December 29th, 8 a.m. She declines this and says we should stick to orders. She also tells me her internet is out. December 29, 11 a.m., I contacted the police about child abduction. I tell them the story. They say, here is an incident number, we are not going to open a case on this. Take it up with the court. At 4 p.m., I got a message saying, freeways are closing down for the night. Been driving every back road looking for entrances without frozen bridges or backed up with accidents. It's an hour wait every time I fill up. Everybody's sure it'll be better tomorrow. Signals are better at least. I respond by asking her to tell me when she leaves. Note: no freeways or highways are shut down. I check all state and local websites to verify. Even check Twitter and local live camera feeds. December 30th, 8 a.m., call my lawyers, tell them what is going on, send them all of the timeline, and they say they will reach out to her attorney. 1 p.m., they finally get in touch with her attorney, and the response back is that she is leaving today, that she will message me when she does, and I can come and get the kids from her place. 2 p.m. I ask for an update from my ex. 4:45 p.m. Still having gotten no communication, I call my lawyers again. They call her lawyer. I finally got a response. I have left. That's all. At 6 p.m., get a message, I am home, you can come get them. 7 p.m. 55 hours past exchange, I get the kids and I ask them about the snow and being stuck. I was not trying to pry information or grill them, just casual light conversation. They tell me that they have been at home for 3 days. Since the night of the 27th, now I am asking some more pointed questions. I ask about what car they drove. They are kids, maybe the timeline is wrong. They say they were in their mom's car because grandma had to leave on Christmas Day to be back home, so they drove separately. They say that mom said I told her she could keep them for 2 more days. I am furious. It was all lies. I am contacting lawyers today. But what are my options here? I want to have a reasonable expectation walking into this. My stance right now is, I need action and need someone else to be as posed about this as I am, or I'll find a lawyer who is. But I do realize my emotions are elevated. Additional note, in the last 2 years I have filed a 730. Spent $12,000 on it. 2-year process. Basically it said I am the better parent, but that she might be improving, and that his suggestion would be to wait a year and do another 730, and if things haven't improved by then, it would be appropriate to swap me to primary custody. That report was produced in April this year. Update: I was looking in my profile and saw my post in this subreddit from 7 years ago, as my ex was causing so much chaos that I was doubting everything. I took everything to heart and implemented several things right away. I became a gray rock and started documenting my ass off. I consulted my lawyers, and they said they advised several steps. The first of which was a 730 evaluation. This is an evaluation done by a psychologist. That process took a really long time as the 730th evaluator got very sick halfway through. That took 10 months. At the end the report essentially read, Mom is volatile and disorganized and that Dad's home would be a more stable home for the children. However, there is hope that Mom is starting to improve, so if things are still bad in 1 year it would be appropriate to change custody to Dad. This was a tough pill to swallow. Things were not better, and the chaos was just intermittent. So we just kept documenting, and doing our thing. Eventually, we started getting a lot of emails from teachers that Jill in particular, was often not bathed, never had her homework done, didn't have school supplies and that she was falling way behind in her studies. We applied for a trial to review custody, and asked for primary custody to be swapped to us. That was at the end of 2019, and trial was set for May 2020. So as you can imagine, once COVID hit, everything got delayed. There were a large number of events in 2020. COVID shut down. Donna and I had a child, Rebecca. And then my ex started denying visitation to Jill and Marvin. Every 2 weeks I would go down, wait in front of the house, no kids would emerge. Sometimes I would have the police come, not to force anything, but to get the documentation in terms of a case number. This went on for 4 months, before I was able to start getting visitation again. Eventually, the trial was set for summer of 2021 and went for 3 days and I had over 500 pages of documentation. Day 1 was entirely testimony from the co-parenting therapist we had been seeing for 5 years. She testified that my ex was the most difficult client she had ever worked with in her career, that my ex never followed a single agreement in session, and that she was a pathological liar. Last day of testimony was my ex, where she was caught lying on the stand, and was presented with evidence that she had been secretly taking the children to a medical professional for 2 years that I had explicitly not agreed to. So starting in August 2021, the judge ordered the kids to come live with me, primary custody and limiting my ex to 4 days a month. It's now been 3 years. When Jill was in 5th grade, she had a 26% in math and a 40% in English. For the last 3 years, she has maintained a 4.0 every single year, and will be starting high school in honors geometry, honors English and AP biology. Marvin has also been doing well also and just finished his first year of middle school with a 4.0 GPA, and is loving his coding and robotics elective. They have new clothes, and have learned new skills and responsibilities. Donna has been crucial in setting up patterns to help with success in school. Their rooms are both immaculate, and they are the ones doing it with very little direction from us. They are happy and finally involved in activities and sports. Our little Rebecca adores them both, and I will often find all three of them cuddled up together as one of the older two reads a book to her. Jill made the decision recently to stop going on visits to her mom. The chaos and drama started being directed at her. Along with lack of food, clothes that fit, etc. Marvin is still going for visits, and we are encouraging that as long as he is feeling safe there. All in all, things are going so well and the kids are doing incredible. There are hard moments still, but it has all been worth it, and we are able to shield them for the most part from any chaos their mom may want to start. If anyone is reading this, please send advice. Thank you. When you are in the thick of it, it is tough to not feel like it is impossible and you will never be able to overcome it. I needed the outside perspective. Too long. Didn't read. Update to a post about considering giving up custody of my kids, to fighting for them for years, eventually getting custody and turning all of our lives around for the better. Relevant comment. Commenter. Cheered when I heard both the kids got their grades up. You've set them on the right path, sir. Good work. Oop. Thanks. We knew they had the ability. It is amazing what can happen when kids have support with HW, and a routine to follow every day. Soon they start believing in themselves and then setting their own lofty goals. Jill has dreams of becoming an investigative journalist. Marvin would like to become a nuclear engineer. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. I was uninvited from a planned vacation with my boyfriend and his best friend. She threatened to cancel if I did. Original post. My boyfriend wanted to go on a vacation this summer to his mom's friend's house in Hawaii with me and his two best friends, 25 male and 29 female. We had been planning on this all spring, and at some point, 25 male dropped out of the trip, leaving just the three of us. For context, my boyfriend and I have been going out since November, and it's been serious. We had, and still have, been talking about moving in together, and he has said, and I agree, that this is a long-term situation and that we are in it for good. In early June, once 25 male unexpectedly dropped out of the trip, 29 female called my boyfriend and told him that now that it was just the three of us, she didn't feel comfortable with me going on the trip, since she didn't know me that well and she didn't want to be a third wheel. She said that if I were to go, she wouldn't go on the trip. Without telling me that this was happening, they changed the plans and made it a trip just the two of them, and they changed the location to a beach in Costa Rica. I was trying to figure out when to ask for time off this summer and hadn't heard news about the plans, so I asked my boyfriend which week in August I should be setting aside for the Hawaii trip. He let me know that, actually, he had talked to his friend and that she didn't want to go if I were going, so he was going to go alone with her to Costa Rica. He said that we could go another week later, maybe to Mexico City or something. I was upset, and tried to talk with him about how the situation made me feel, especially since this wasn't a case of a separate trip being set up ahead of time. This was a case of me being invited and then uninvited from a week-long tropical vacation with a girlfriend of his who I had never met before. We eventually decided to do a trip together to Copenhagen, which we have both wanted to visit, as some sort of compensation. I also asked to meet her, so that I could feel more comfortable with the trip. We spent the 4th of July going to see her and her boyfriend in the city where they live, and although it was nice to put a face to a name, it was ultimately a very cold trip and she was not at all welcoming to me. My boyfriend remarked on how unfriendly she was. To both of us, he thought. And said that he was surprised that she didn't act warmly to me. I went out of my way to try to get to know her and her boyfriend. I'm very outgoing and friendly and usually this would be easy. But it didn't really click, even after several days. They were somewhat cold to each other as well. They bickered a little bit about their future and his own 3-week trip without her that was scheduled for the same time as their trip. This had been scheduled before ours had. This had been my effort to feel better about the trip, so I told my boyfriend that I still didn't feel comfortable with things, and that I was feeling insulted by the way that it was handled. I had tried to make things smooth between all of us, and I asked him to please come up with something that could help me feel better about the trip. On a visit to his family, They asked about the trip and they were all shocked that he would have arranged it this way, and let me know that they would have been furious if they were in my position, which triggered a fight in which I asked him to please help come up with a strategy to make me feel better and more secure about them going together without me. He said that he would never do this kind of thing again, which feels like not much to offer, since this is kind of a once-in-a-lifetime trip to begin with. He kind of offered to not go on the trip, but he had already paid for the tickets and made arrangements, and I didn't want to stop their trip and be resented by both him and his best friend. He asked me to give him ideas of how to make me feel better and wanted me to just tell him what to do installed until it was finally the day of the trip. He bought me a bag of peanut butter cups and I drove the two of them to the airport. I feel so disregarded and disrespected in this situation. I want to break up with him, but I don't want to burn up something that has otherwise been really good. Too long, didn't read. I, 28 female, was uninvited from a vacation with my boyfriend, 29 male, and his best friend, 29 female, and I can't get over it. I want advice on how to talk with him about this. Update 1. I was really upset the day I dropped him off and he was texting me but I wasn't responding. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, but I didn't want to do anything at all in the state I was in. I waited until the next day, and then I sent him a thought-out text letting him know that I didn't feel safe or loved in the way the trip was handled and that I would be dropping his things off at his place and leaving his keys with the neighbor. He called but didn't leave any messages and then he messaged me that he didn't understand. The rest of the week, he called and messaged me, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up or text back. On Thursday, I think that he realized that I was serious, and he asked me some questions about logistical things. I told him which neighbor his key was with, etc. When he got back and saw all his things at his place, he got pretty frantic and called and left me a long message. I was working all day, but also I still didn't want to respond. He asked me to explain because he didn't understand what was going on. The next day, I sent another text making it clear that it was over, and he got upset and sent me a bunch of texts in a row about how he didn't understand why I was throwing away everything that we built. He left me a voicemail that was really angry that said he had no idea why I was upset and that he did not accept the breakup because he had no say in it and that he wanted me to tell him the evil story that I had made up about him to his face. I wasn't going to respond to him and I wanted to remain calm, but this upset me. So I sat down to write him this letter. It's long, so skip over if you want. I tried to call him but I started crying and told him I'd just send him an email instead. This is what it said. The time that we have had apart has given me some good space and time to think. I have had a chance to think about the things that are important for me in a relationship and I see that we should not be together. I am sorry that I have been asking for you to change things about your life that you shouldn't have to change at my or anyone's behest. From the very start, this trip was made in an insanely disrespectful way in which it started out from you being given an ultimatum by your female best friend who I had never met that either she goes or I go on this trip, and you picked her. You didn't offer to have her meet me. Theoretically I was your long-term partner, so this would have made a lot of sense. You didn't encourage her to find someone else to come, and you didn't consult me at all. That's enough for most people to have a deal breaker, right there. However, I stayed. This is a person who you have a history with that is not entirely clear to me. Here is what I understand. Some bad rumors got started about the two of you in which you spent an entire night out with her on an acid trip while you were dating someone else. Nothing happened. The other thing I understand is that you were interested in her romantically at some, theoretically other point and that she started dating her boyfriend and that closed the door on things for you. According to what I also understand, it took a long time for 29F's boyfriend to feel comfortable with you being around, but you apparently worked to ultimately make him feel comfortable with you after I'm not sure how long. This is the completely unknown person who shut me out of a trip that I was originally going to go on. Unilateral decision. You did not tell me this was happening until I asked when the trip to Hawaii would be. You purchased tickets in another very disrespectful situation in which I have cooked dinner and have guests present, and you choose to go into my room for well over an hour to select tickets with her, and in which I repeatedly ask you to please come to dinner because you say it will just be a few more minutes each time. There is absolutely no reason for doing it at that time and in that situation, seeing as how she is in the same time zone as us and has a 9-to-5 job. This makes me feel sick to my stomach. So, to make myself feel better about this whole arrangement, I tell you that I want to meet this person. On my request, we arranged a trip to go meet her and her boyfriend, a brief trip in which they are, and you explicitly agree, inexplicably cold. The first conversation that we have is one in which 29 female and her boyfriend argue about how she dumped him while he was already in a relationship and got him to date her instead. You tell me about conversations that 29 female has had with you recently in which it seems implied that there is some real instability in their long-term relationship. Stuff about kids and dogs. I have a discussion in which I let you know that I see that and that it worries me. Meanwhile, I am still wanting all of this to work out for you and for me and for her. I, at this point, am planning on being with you for the long term and see no benefit in telling you to not go on a trip with your best friend. I want it to work out. But each and every interaction surrounding this trip chips and chips away at my ability to handle it, the conversations that seem to go nowhere, etc. Your dad, your mom, and your grandparents are all very surprised when we tell them about this trip. It is becoming very obvious that this is a dangerous trip to make with the fragility of our relationship. 29 million, we had only been together for 9 months. How long did it take before 29 female's boyfriend was comfortable with you hanging around? Much less going on a one-on-one international tropical vacation in which he was uninvited because of your request. We go over it with, friend, at the rock climbing gym, we go over it in the car, we go over it while we're booking our Airbnb for Copenhagen, we go over it when I tell you that I still feel uncomfortable and I do not feel good about the trip. Talk about repeatedly saying something. Although I ask for you to help me, you actually ask me instead to come up with what would make me feel better. Surprisingly, I have no ideas either. Ultimately, it appears that the original plan to meet at my place and hang out and do a game night before you two go on the trip has been cancelled, and 29F will be staying at my place, but not hanging out with us at all beforehand. You attribute it to you not bringing it up with her early enough. This is apparently not something that was discussed even 2 nights before the trip. This upsets me. You do not know what to do. I don't blame you. At this point, it was well out of hand. I don't know what to do either. There is no good solution that I can think of besides waiting for the trip to be over. I tell you that either I have to get over it, or I have to break up with you, and that I don't want to break up with you. But my ability to get over it is rather worn down. She arrives at my place very late, and we wake up the next morning for me to take the 2 of you to the airport. After all of this lead up, I know that you can tell how unhappy I am. I fully absolutely know you can tell how unhappy I am. You leave, and when I don't respond to your text messages, you text me to tell me that you hope I'm okay and you're going to bed. No call. The rest of the week was rough. My text to you was met with, essentially, I'm sorry you feel this way. You tell me that I'm being unfair. There is no acknowledgement, and there still has been none, that this trip to a fucking honeymoon destination, as we have discussed before, could be a crazy and horrible thing to go through with, even with my quasi-blessing. This is not something that people in relationships have to deal with. This is not something that people in relationships do, besides 29 female, I guess. In the end, all of this is to say that I have felt serious emotional needs go seriously unmet in a way that is a deal breaker for me. There have been some wonderful, very positive times, but there has been an unnecessary amount of heartache and suffering for me over things that come down to what I can only assume are personal differences. I cannot handle your relationship with a 29 female. And I suppose I could ask you to pick between her and me, but that's not what I want to do. I want you to have your best friend, and I want to leave. I did love you, but I am not about to fight this fight and hear you tell me that I'm crazy for not seeing how totally platonic everything is for the rest of my life. It seems like trying to convince someone to like different food, or to have a different favorite color. I am not happy about this, and I do not want to feel these feelings any longer. There is no need for this to be mutual. I do not need your permission to break up with you. He wrote me back an apologetic email in which he accepted responsibility for most things without any argument, except he denied anything that had to do with his relationship with her making me feel uncomfortable, and he denied that I would not be able to handle their relationship. He said that the only thing that made their trip bad for me was my own perspective. I wrote him back that trust has to be built and that he put too much strain too early on a relationship in which we had not developed that trust. He agreed and apologized. For me, it ended on a pretty amicable note, but this style of relationship really doesn't work for me, and I don't feel like his responses to me really healed or changed anything significantly. I stand by my decision at this point. Too long didn't read, we broke up, reminder, I am not the original poster. My parents humiliated me at my sister's graduation. They joked that I was a mistake compared to my perfect sister, so I shocked them by this. At my sister's graduation, I felt absolutely ashamed of my own parents. They denigrated me in front of everyone, even our closest friends and relatives. This was supposed to be only about Elena, my older sister. She was excited to start her new path because she had recently graduated from college and secured an amazing job. When my parents stood up to speak in her honor, I expected them to make appropriate remarks. She has worked hard to reach this milestone and deserves every bit of credit. I was not surprised when, during their address, they included Elena as one of the greatest blessings. I was old enough by then to recognize that my parents adored Elena more than they loved me. She had always been the more gifted daughter, and my parents would constantly compare me to her. Then my parents began to joke in their speech about how they should have stopped having children after Elena. They argued that second-borns are usually useless. They said that if they only had Elena in their lives, they could have spent more time and effort on her instead of me. Hearing them say such awful things openly and casually while I was sitting right there stunned me. I searched the room, hoping that someone, anybody, would notice how disturbing their statements were, but all I saw were the faces of my relatives laughing along, as if this horrible simile were simply light entertainment. Though my parents had often made me feel inferior and useless, this was the first time they had done it openly, leaving no room for me to hide from the fact. In their opinion, I simply lacked in comparison to their beautiful daughter Elena. This was not an isolated incident or moment of poor judgment. It reinforced what I had long suspected. I was considered a distant afterglow, whereas my older sister would always be the daughter they adored. Growing up as the second child, I became accustomed to our household's implied preference. It constantly crept into their speech, conduct, and routines. My parents frequently forgot to wish me a happy birthday, and on more than one occasion, they were on business travels, leaving me alone. They would never miss Elena's moment. Every year, without fail, both of my parents would be there, planning a spectacular event and ensuring Mom felt honored. Seeing how they showered her with love on her special day taught me early on to manage my expectations and accept that my birthday was not that important to them. As an opinionated youngster, my parents regularly informed me that I was disruptive or unpleasant just because of who I was. I was labeled problematic because I did not fit the quiet, restrained mold they appeared to like, and I was punished for something as simple as being too chatty or honest in expressing my interests. Elena's calm temperament and introverted tendencies, on the other hand, were constantly lauded. In our family, she was regarded as the ideal daughter, as she was mature and polite. She was thus the one who was displayed and paraded in front of everyone. Over the years, I was the one who received the most criticism. I tried for a while to suit the picture my parents seemed to want. I put in the effort, believing that if I acted better, accomplished more, or followed their plan, they would eventually see me differently. But as I grew older, it became clear that I couldn't simply shape myself into Elena's clone. We were two separate people. I tried so hard, but I couldn't be her. I eventually gave up and attempted to adjust to their constant adulation of her. The way they would brag about her accomplishments to anybody who would listen while dismissing everything I had ever done still hurt terribly. All of those occurrences, as devastating as they were, had at least remained within our household. I was amazed at how casually they exposed everything at the graduation ceremony. All of those incidents, as traumatic as they were, had at least remained within the family. I was astonished by how casually my parents disgraced me during their speech at Elena's graduation. My parents had never embarrassed me in front of others, so they had never shown the rest of the extended family how little respect they had for me. What hurt me even more was that no one in my entire family showed displeasure or told my parents how inappropriate this was. Nobody even glanced sympathetically at me after my parents cracked those jokes at my expense. My parents continued to laud Elena, and their tones conveyed a sense of pride that I had never seen directed at me. Then they brazenly announced that they had bought her a graduation present, a brand new automobile, which she had always wanted to buy. With everyone's attention on Elena, who hugged my parents with love and gratitude, the room erupted in applause, laughter, and clapping. The three of them were really content. I felt like an outsider in my own family. The funny thing is that I've never been envious of Elena. We'd always gotten along well enough, and I believe she deserved whatever good fortune came along. But that speech broke me. The truth is that after that awful speech, I addressed my parents. For years, I had silently endured their favoritism, scorn, and unpleasant words. I took it all in and convinced myself that if I just tried to be strong and calm instead of irritated, things would get better. But that evening, after the speech and their joke in front of everyone, I had reached a breaking point. I was tired of taking everything in and pretending that their comments didn't sting anymore. I thus resolved that I could no longer remain silent. I mustered the courage to speak up, hoping that my parents would see how deeply their acts had hurt me. I wanted them to at least show that they cared enough to listen to me. I wanted them to recognize the misery they had caused over the years and accept the embarrassment I felt at the moment. If I told them how I felt, I figured they'd regret what they said, or at least feel awful about making me appear so little. When I eventually confronted them, I received a cold, scornful response. They paid little attention to my words. Rather than offering sorrow or an apology, they told me I was exaggerating, as if years of being ignored and denigrated could be so easily dismissed. They acted as if I had no right to be furious with them, or as if my feelings did not matter. My father went so far as to remark that he had nothing to be proud of when it came to me, and that I should not hold it against them if they were disappointed with who I was. I recall how casually he stated it, as if my presence did not matter to him. My mother, on the other hand, told me to stop overreacting and pointed out that I was being overly needy by being upset over something so insignificant. It felt as if my parents were saying I hadn't earned the basic respect of being their child because I hadn't done enough, that I was somehow less deserving of their pride or care than Elena simply because I wasn't her. The matter even resurfaced to Elena, who defended my parents and obviously demanded that I be less harsh with them. She said something that truly hit home and I'll never forget. I shouldn't have been so outraged by their graduation speech because it was merely a harmless jest. Elena assured me that if I had studied and worked hard like she did, I could make them proud as well. Among all the words, those that struck the most deeply. It was dreadful to learn I hadn't worked hard enough to earn their respect. She made it sound so simple, as if all the years of effort I had put in were invisible to her, as if my difficulties and attempts to get a job had no bearing. As the older sister, I expected her to protect me in some way, but she didn't. That seemed like betrayal coming from her. Looking back, that conversation turned things around. I realized then that I had left my family behind. Done trying to win their approval, done clarifying for them, and done hoping for something that would never come, love or affirmation. I put all of my work into making something for myself. Starting that day, I immersed myself in my studies, focusing on the things I could influence and create my destiny. 2 years later, all of my hard work paid off when I was accepted on a full scholarship to my dream institution. This was a personal accomplishment for me. This was entirely my own accomplishment, the result of my dedication, determination, and refusal to let my family's neglect define me. After achieving that goal, it appeared, for the first time, that I had done something quite personal. When I gave my parents the news, they were almost as astonished as if they had never expected me to attend college in the first place, never alone on a scholarship. Elena scrutinized my admission letter twice, as if she didn't believe I was capable of doing things on my own. Clearly, they had all underestimated me, and watching their surprise made me slightly thrilled. I simply shook my head at her remark, but my mother then turned my mood sour by saying that it was a good thing I had received a full scholarship because they hadn't set aside any college funds for me anyhow. My parents had no issue paying Elena's tuition, despite their lack of foresight in saving for me. When it was time to move out, I simply packed my belongings and left the house for my college apartment. That day, I made a determined decision to cut off all contact with Elena and my parents. I felt no need to explain my intentions. They had consistently demonstrated, after all, that my feelings, opinions, and values had little influence on them. Why should I exhaust myself trying to explain something they had shown unable to acknowledge? Since they hadn't even provided an apology that might restore the years of neglect and agony they had caused me, I recognized that arguing with them was pointless. My family contacted me frequently over the next few weeks and months, sending emails and messages in the vague hope that they had reconsidered their actions and had reached out to make amends. I initially felt compelled to open them. However, each message served as a sour reminder of who they were. Their communications were filled with attempts to mislead me into believing I was the one acting erratically. Instead of accepting responsibility for the years of mental pain they had caused, they believed I had overreacted, dismissing my decision to end relationships as immature and impulsive. Their statements consistently returned to the underlying truth. I was the one dissolving the family, so I was wrong to cut them off. I never bothered to respond to any of them. So far, my college experience has been quite positive. I've been able to devote my full attention to my studies, hobbies, and, most importantly, connections with people who love and see me for who I am. Working part-time at a neighboring diner has helped me save for the future. Meeting new people in the diner and talking about their life is interesting. I've cut off contact with my family and immersed myself in my studies, social life, and everything my new surroundings have to offer. By filling my days with important events, I haven't missed them or wondered about how they are doing once. Yesterday, I received an unexpected email from my parents. I found it shocking. They stopped writing to me long ago because I had never answered any of their previous communications. My parents encouraged me in this email to contact them soon away since they had some bad news to tell me. Still, I felt my chest tighten. Despite everything, years of hurt and rejection could not erase the constant feeling that something terrible had occurred. My heart started racing, and all I could think about was the possibility that a family member had been seriously ill or, worse, perished. Despite my resolution to keep them at a distance, fear crept in, my heart hammering as I braced myself for whatever news they were about to bring. I grabbed my phone, unblocked them, and called them immediately back. Elena, who was going through a difficult personal situation, was troubled by the news my parents wanted to share with me. They stated that she had been dealing with drug addiction, which had severely impacted her life. They said that her addiction had gotten so bad that she had lost her job, spent her savings, and was now left with no resources or options. I had no idea Elena was going through anything like this, so the news completely surprised me. She has always been my dependable, high-achieving sibling. However, that same sister became addicted to drugs. I found it tough to believe. Elena's addiction was so unbelievable in my parents' eyes that it shattered their perception of her. Their incredulity, desperation, and, most importantly, their tremendous concern about how this would affect their reputation if others found out shocked me. They hoped I'd have some answers for them as they described everything. Elena had always appeared to be grounded and responsible, so it was startling that she, of all people, had fallen victim to something as dangerous as heroin addiction. My father then asked me, in a mistrustful tone, "You didn't introduce her to drugs back then, did you?" The ramifications surprised me. Not only was the idea completely absurd, but it was also very disgusting to think they may assume I had anything to do with Elena's troubles, much alone anything as serious as introducing her to drugs. How could I bring drugs to my older sister? I mean, I never do drugs myself. Furthermore, I hadn't spoken with Elena or the rest of my family in years due to their mistreatment of me. Having been removed from their life, I had focused on carving my own path away from their toxicity. In the face of their immaculate image of Elena breaking, they were quick to point fingers at someone else, and I was clearly the easiest target. I advised them to speak with Elena before making any assumptions, and I told them that they were unwise to even suspect me. Throughout our conversation, I noticed that my parents were more concerned with the shame that would befall the family if Elena's admissions were public, rather than expressing concern for her. My mother appeared fascinated with her immaculate daughter's clandestine actions. She kept talking about how unexpected it was to discover this aspect of herself and how others would respond if they ever found out. Elena and Dad were overwhelmed and unprepared to deal with the situation, so my mother begged me to return home so I could assist them in caring for Elena. My mother implored me, "I mean, what do we even do? I feel so ashamed of her, so maybe you can talk to her for us," as if this were a legitimate demand to make after years of not communicating. "I can't help Elena. She needs professional help," I stated bluntly. I emphasized that if they truly cared about her well-being and wanted to help her recover, the finest and most compassionate thing they could do was to admit her to a treatment facility where trained specialists could assist her. But my father immediately rejected the idea of sending her to rehab, nearly trembling at the thought of their family's good name being tarnished by her admission to a treatment center. He was obsessed with the possibility of their reputation being harmed by sending her to such a location. He claimed it would only assist to damage their reputation. The thought of people knowing that their only accomplished daughter had a sickness as serious as heroin addiction horrified him. My father chided me for even considering this option, as if openly admitting her addiction was more shameful, and as if constant surveillance would magically fix the problem. Dad insisted that I return home, and that the three of us work together to care for Elena, putting her under constant observation to prevent a relapse. He kept saying how much they wanted Elena to feel better and get back to her normal life as soon as possible. Their perspective was that everything would return to normal as long as no one else knew. They wanted me to take part in a charade, pretending everything was okay while keeping her issues hidden from everyone else. I got outraged and incredulous as I listened. Why were my parents so concerned with what others thought about them and their reputation? Here was an opportunity for my parents to truly stand up, to demonstrate that they could prioritize their daughter's needs over appearances and transform her life. My sister was plainly suffering from something serious, yet they still struggled to do the proper thing. These people had not altered all that much, obviously. On top of that, they were now attempting to entice me back in, urging me to maintain this family front by assisting them in caring for the sister they frequently likened me to. I claimed I needed some time to think about things. I can't just walk away. After all, I have classes and a job to consider. My parents insisted that I take at least 2 or 3 weeks off to help them because they really needed me right now. About everything, I'm torn. Part of me wants to see what I can do for Elena to make sure she's okay. Another side of me is selfish, allowing my parents to manage their golden child fully on their own. I'm not sure I can be of much help because they are more concerned with saving face than with addressing the root of the problem. Even today, I wonder if I should refuse to return home and care for my drug-addicted sister. Update 1. This story didn't appear like it was going to explode. It is taking some time to look through the hundreds of comments I have received. I wanted to clear up a few things. I don't hate Elena. Actually, I want to help her and genuinely care about her. However, because I have not spoken with my family in 3 years, I have experienced a level of serenity and stability that I did not have previously. I am concerned that reconnecting with Elena may allow my parents to re-enter my life as well. I honestly do not know for sure. If you're wondering, Elena could have been fighting with heroin addiction for years, possibly even before my parents discovered it. Clearly, Elena, the golden child, was praised and kept as the ideal daughter, frequently under intense pressure to maintain that image. This form of pedestal minimizes susceptibility and failure. Any failure, no matter how little, could have been devastating. If Elena believed her worth was solely determined by her accomplishments and how others perceived her, drugs could have developed over time as a coping mechanism for escaping the weight of those expectations or the fear of disappointing our parents. I become even more depressed when I think about my sister, who may have been suffering silently all along without my knowledge. She should have felt comfortable being honest with me earlier, before things got to this point. I would have wanted to be there for her, to help her get through it. It just makes me feel powerless. If only I had known about this significant part of her life and could have helped her. My parents expected the best of me and my sister from an early age because they are both high achievers. Personally, I need some time to analyze everything. I will notify you if anything further develops. Update 2. After considerable internal thought and encouragement from some of the comments I read, I decided to contact Elena. She is my sister, despite everything. As a result, I believed it was critical to hear from her directly rather than basing my decisions on my parents' interpretations of events. First, I texted her a short note asking if she wanted to chat. She responded some hours later, but only agreed to a phone call. When I finally spoke with her, the voice on the other end of the telephone seemed like a shadow of the sister I knew. Elena's tone was obviously weighted, softer, and more careful. She slowly revealed what she was going through. Elena stated that she had fought with addiction for several years. It began shortly after college, when she began working for her law business. She struggled to maintain that status at work by continually working harder than others to impress her supervisor in the hopes of receiving more credit or a promotion. She began to feel burned out after being the perfect, highly talented daughter for so long. Elena felt she couldn't stop, slow down, or get treatment because she had to live up to the expectations everyone had for her. When stress got unbearable, a friend recommended using recreational drugs to unwind. Before she knew it, what began as intermittent use had become into reliance. Elena also stated that she felt imprisoned for the longest time. She couldn't tell her parents she was struggling since she knew how they would react. She felt alone due to their obsessive attention to appearances and denial of anything that contradicted their narrative. She maintained the facade, acting as if everything was fine, even as she began to lose control. She couldn't hide the fact any longer, so she spiraled, lost her job, and depleted her savings. She wondered whether I was criticizing her as harshly as she was analyzing herself, and she expressed her embarrassment for even discussing this with me. It hurt my heart to hear her story. I'd never realized that the platform our parents had set her on was a prison rather than a privilege. She had been bearing the suffocating weight of being their golden child, whereas I had been dealing with the pain of being overlooked. Our parents' focus on control and favoritism had harmed each of us in different ways. There was no way I would have judged her. As a result, I expressed my regret that she had not communicated her feelings with me. My only regret is that I was not with her. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. My rich mother-in-law, Karen, has treated me like a maid for many years. Now, I have stopped tolerating and prepared a perfect plan for revenge on her. Alex's words cut through the clatter of dishes like a keen scalpel. Alara, bring me some tea now. I halted, my hands dipped in soapy water. Hold on, I'm doing the dishes. What? His tone was incredulous and impatient. Stop that, and bring me the tea right away. Can't you obey simple commands? But, I began, only to be interrupted. What a useless wife you are. Make me some sweet coffee, said another voice. Mrs. Whitmore, my mother-in-law, spoke from the living room. She sat there, munching a slice of cake she had grabbed from the fridge, her eyes gleaming with malice. I sighed and looked at the stack of dishes. There are so many. Leave them for later. Just do what we say, useless wife, Alex's voice hissed, each syllable hurting. I was Alara, a 28-year-old working mother whose life felt more like a jail than a home. Married at 23, I had hoped for love and friendship, but instead found myself in the hands of Alex and his domineering mother. Our 4-year-old son was the only bright spot in an otherwise dark existence. We lived in Alex's parents' house, a decision foisted on me under the premise of caring for Mrs. Whitmore after my father-in-law died. Initially, I sympathized with her alleged anguish, but it quickly became evident that I was nothing more than a part in her cruel game of home oppression. Cooking, cleaning, and working just weren't enough. My attempts were treated with derision, And my meals were either left untouched or sharply ridiculed. "The stir-fry is so half-hearted," Mrs. Whitmore would remark. "Cook it properly from scratch." "I'm busy and can only do simple things," I'd say, trying to maintain a calm voice. "That's why I hate backtalk from my daughter-in-law," she quipped. "Cook from scratch. Why don't you cook? You are a good cook, correct?" I risked to react once and soon regretted it. "Why would I do housekeeping with you here?" She responded coldly and dismissively. "Are you out of your mind?" Their brutality grew with time, progressing from harsh words to a chilling quiet. They began to entirely disregard me, as if I were a ghost in my own home. My presence, which was previously underestimated, now appeared completely invisible. 5 years passed in this suffocating environment. Alex and I turned 35 and 33 respectively. Our son developed, but the unpleasant atmosphere in the house remained constant. My mother-in-law, now 63, appeared to thrive on my suffering. One evening, as I trudged home from work, a heavy revelation hit me. They saw my existence as meaningless. I was a shadow, unnoticed and unheard. The only voice that acknowledged me was my son's. The idea of losing even that minor recognition was agonizing. When I returned home, I started cooking right away, hoping to lift my spirits. I made mapo tofu, fried chicken, and a stir-fry with bell peppers and pork, attempting to bring some regularity to our dinner. "Bring me the mayo," Alex said unexpectedly, breaking his long silence. "Sure, here you are," I said, handing him the mayonnaise. His first words to me in ages were not thanks or discussion, but rather a command. It was the last straw, the limit of my patience and tolerance. Mrs. Whitmore demanded, "Clean the toilet?" "What? Now?" I was shocked. "Yes, now," she demanded, her voice full of hate. I snapped back, unable to suppress my annoyance. "Don't say such a thing while we're eating. It's nasty, just like your heart," she said. Our dispute immediately escalated, with Alex interjecting and demanding that I apologize to his mother. But I refused, standing firm for the first time in years. The conflict reached its climax, and a conclusion formed within me. I needed to get out of this toxic environment, not just for myself, but also for my baby. I returned to my room, my determination stiffening. I downloaded divorce papers, completed them, and slapped them in front of Alex. His amazement was evident, but I felt just icy determination. "I'm filing these," I announced, my voice firm. As I stood there, looking at my husband's puzzled expression, I realized I had finally stepped out of the shadows. It was time to regain my life. The days after I declared my divorce were a blur of frigid stares and stinging remarks, but in the midst of the chaos, I discovered an unexpected sense of freedom. Mrs. Whitmore looked at the food I was serving one evening with distaste. "You call this food? Even a child cooks better." I bit my tongue, concentrating on my son's happy expression. "Eat up, sweetheart. I made your favorite tonight," Alex added in, his voice full of sarcasm. "Oh, playing the perfect mother now, are we? What a joke." I could feel my rage rising, but I held my cool. "I'm just trying to make a nice dinner for our son." Mrs. Whitmore snorted. "Don't act high and mighty, you're just a burden in this house." The tension around the table was apparent. Alex's attempts to insult me grew more intense. "So, Alara, have you thought about how you'll survive after the divorce? You can barely keep a house, let alone your own life." I stared him directly in the eyes. "I have been supporting this family for years. I'm not worried about taking care of myself and our son." His smirk faded somewhat, and a spark of concern appeared on his face. Mrs. Whitmore was quick to intercede. "Don't be absurd. You need us more than we need you." The talk drifted to finances, which they typically avoided. "You do realize that without my salary, this household would crumble," I said to myself rather than to them. Mrs. Whitmore sneered. "We'd manage, we don't need your pity money." But Alex's silence spoke volumes. He understood the truth. They would be in serious financial trouble if I did not provide a living. Their behavior deteriorated during the next few days. Mrs. Whitmore alternated between trying to sweet-talk me into staying and shouting insults when I refused. Alex, on the other hand, appeared confused, his arrogance eroding as the reality of his financial dependency became clear. One afternoon, I overheard a talk between them that chilled me to the core. "She can't just leave us like this," Alex growled. "We need her money." Mrs. Whitmore's response was chilly and calculating. "Do not worry. I have a plan. We'll make her life so unpleasant that she won't want to leave." Hearing their genuine objectives exposed was a revelation. They did not care about me or our son. It was all about power and wealth. That night, as I lay in bed, an idea began to emerge in my head. If they wanted a fight, I'd give them one. But it would not be fought with words or trivial disputes. I'd strike them where it hurts the most. Their pride and their pocketbook. The following morning, I began putting my plan into action. I contacted a lawyer, a bright, no-nonsense woman who was highly recommended. I want a divorce, and I want to make sure they don't get a penny more than they deserve, I informed the woman. She nodded, her eyes bright with determination. We'll make sure of it. You've been the only breadwinner, correct? We'll make use of that. My resolve got stronger with each passing day. I began documenting everything: insults, financial manipulation, and even little grievances. It was time to turn the tables. It was time to accept the repercussions of their deeds. As I prepared my case, I felt a sense of empowerment. For the first time in years, I felt like I had power over my own fate. The shades of scorn were slowly lifting, revealing a new dawn. As the divorce proceedings began, the mood in the house became more caustic. Yet, with each passing day, my panic faded, replaced by a steely resolve. Mrs. Whitmore decided to try a new strategy one evening. "Alara, dear, why don't we forget all this nasty business? You know we're family." Her comments were insincere. I met her stare unwaveringly. "Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me." Alex, who had been silently watching, scoffed. "Oh, playing the victim now? You're not as innocent as you pretend to be." I felt a wave of rage, but I kept my voice composed. "I'm not playing anything, Alex. I'm just no longer willing to be your scapegoat." As is typically the case, the subject turned to finances. "You think you can just take our son and leave? How will you support him?" Alex was skeptical. I grinned with a tiny, confident curl of my lips. "I've been supporting this family for years. I think I can manage." Mrs. Whitmore turned her gaze into a sneer. "You're nothing without us. You'll come crawling back." But their remarks no longer had force over me. I recognized my worth and knew the truth. The following day, I met with my lawyer again. She outlined the strategy clearly. "We'll expose their financial dependency on you. It will play a crucial role in the custody battle and the division of assets." I nodded, feeling vindicated. The law was on my side, and I was prepared to fight back. At home, the tension had reached a boiling point. Mrs. Whitmore's attempts to discredit me got increasingly desperate. "You think you're so smart," she sneered one evening. "But you're just a cold-hearted woman abandoning your family." I stared her directly in the eyes. I'm a woman who's finally standing up for herself." Alex leapt in, his voice full of fury. "You'll regret this. You can't survive without me." However, his threats fell on deaf ears. I was done being intimidated. As the days passed, my preparations for the court battle became more intense. I obtained financial accounts, documented their harsh remarks, and gathered evidence of their negligence. One afternoon, as I was arranging my documents, my kid approached me. "Mom, are we going to be okay?" His voice was soft and hesitant. I drew him into an embrace, feeling a flash of protectiveness. "Yes, sweetheart. We're going to be just fine. We're leaving this place, and we're going to start a new, happy life, just you and me." His arms tightened around me, and I knew I'd made the correct decision. I was fighting not just for myself, but also for my son's future. The court hearing date approached, bringing with it the prospect of impending freedom. I was prepared to confront Alex and Mrs. Whitmore and put an end to their tyranny and emotional abuse. I was ready to take back my life and give my son the peace and happiness he deserved. It was time for justice, and I was determined to see it delivered. The court hearing day arrived, and I was filled with both dread and determination. I felt a sense of surrealism when I sat across from Alex and Mrs. Whitmore in court. This was the moment when everything changed. The proceedings started with frigid formality. Alex's lawyer portrayed him as a dedicated spouse and parent battling under unjust accusations. Mrs. Whitmore played the sorrowful mother-in-law who had been wronged by her ungrateful daughter-in-law. However, their performance was apparent, and their lies were flimsy. When my turn came, I spoke clearly and steadily. "I've been the only provider for this family for years. My husband's unemployment and his mother's manipulative behavior have been continual sources of stress." Alex intervened, his voice tinged with faint hurt. "Alara, how can you say such things? I've always backed you." I turned to him, my stare steadfast. "Alex, support is more than words. It's about deeds, and your actions have only demonstrated selfishness and harshness." The judge listened closely as I presented my evidence, which included financial accounts, audio recordings of their verbal abuse, and testimony from neighbors who witnessed their behavior. The fact was undeniable. As the evidence accumulated, Alex's facade began to collapse. Mrs. Whitmore's poise shattered, and her innocence slipped away. The courtroom was quiet, the air thick with anxiety. Then came the realization that sealed their doom. My lawyer submitted photos and documentation confirming Alex's adultery and Mrs. Whitmore's clandestine affair with Mr. Harwood, a wealthy neighbor. Murmurs broke out in the courtroom as the photographs of them in compromising postures were shown. Their lie was exposed for all to see. Alex's face became ashen, his eyes wide with surprise. Mrs. Whitmore's face twisted into rage, and her hands trembled. You compromised our privacy?" she yelled, her voice shrill. I glanced at her, my voice steady yet forceful. I revealed the truth, which you both had been hiding for far too long. The court shouted for order, but the harm was already done. Their credibility was shattered, and their lies were revealed in the bright light of the courtroom. As the session concluded, the judge's conclusion was apparent. I was given full custody of our son, and a fair distribution of assets was ordered. Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were left with just their destroyed reputations. Walking out of the courtroom, I felt a weight lifted from my shoulders. The years of deception and emotional assault had finally ended. I had confronted my oppressors and emerged victorious. But the finest moment was when my son raced into my arms outside the courthouse, his face beaming with relief and joy. "We did it, Mom," he exclaimed, his voice full of delight. "Yes, we did," I said, holding him close. "We're free now. This is only the beginning for us." As we walked away hand in hand, I realized this was more than simply a personal win. It was a victory for everybody who has ever been made to feel little, helpless, or unworthy. It represented a victory for truth and justice. It was the beginning of a new chapter, one full of optimism and the promise of a better future. The court verdict had an immediate and chaotic impact. The story of Alex and Mrs. Whitmore's deception spread like wildfire, ruining their reputations in our little neighborhood. They could no longer hide behind their facade of respectability. In the days following the verdict, I concentrated on rebuilding my life with my kid, but I couldn't deny the gratification of knowing Alex and Mrs. Whitmore were facing the repercussions of their decisions. One evening, as I was making dinner, I had an unexpected visitor. Mrs. Harwood, Mr. Harwood's wife, appeared, her eyes crimson from unshed tears. "Alara, I've heard about everything. I can't believe what Sylvia, Mrs. Whitmore did," she exclaimed, her voice breaking. I invited her in and offered a cup of tea. As we sat at the kitchen table, she expressed her sadness. I trusted her as a neighbor and friend. And to think she was having an affair with my husband. Her voice trembled, so I listened and offered words of comfort. Mrs. Whitmore's actions had clearly caused far more damage than she had planned. The next day, I saw Alex in town. He was a shell of his former self, his arrogance replaced with a defeated expression. "Alara, please. Can we speak?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I paused, facing him. "What's there to talk about, Alex?" He fidgeted, unwilling to meet my gaze. I apologize for everything. I didn't understand how much I relied on you and your strength." His apologies, however late, reflected the shift in power. He had lost everything, his dignity, his home, and his family, and in that loss, he had finally admitted his own flaws. Mrs. Whitmore, however, received the greatest criticism. Her affair with Mr. Harwood had not only wrecked her reputation but also resulted in legal problems. Mrs. Harwood sought a divorce and sued her for alienation of affection. I learned of Mrs. Whitmore's dilemma from neighbors. Whispers and tales depicted a lady undone by her own acts. She had become an outsider, rejected by individuals she had previously considered friends. I saw her at the grocery store one day, hurrying through the aisles with downcast eyes. Our paths touched, and for a brief moment, our eyes met. The sight of hatred and defeat in her eyes was undeniable. "You did this to me," she said under her breath as she walked by. I watched Sylvia leave, her figure slowly fading as she hurried away, her eyes filled with resentment. I felt a strange mix of pity for her and vindication for myself. "No, Sylvia," I whispered under my breath. "You did this to yourself." The tides of justice had finally shifted. Everything they had done to me, all the lies, the manipulation, the emotional torment, had come full circle. The consequences of their actions were now irreversible. I could see them struggling, living in the aftermath of the deceit they had carefully cultivated over the years. Their false facade had shattered, and now they were forced to face the reality of what they had become. As I watched them suffer through the consequences of their own making, I felt a sense of calm satisfaction. But it wasn't just about them getting what they deserved. The real reward was in the freedom I had gained. The best form of retribution, I realized, was not in revenge, But in living a life full of peace and strength, free from the toxicity and harmful influence they had cast upon me for so long, my focus shifted back to what truly mattered: the future I was building with my son. We were free now, free from the prison they had trapped me in for all those years. I had broken free, and now, I was living the life I had always dreamed of. This wasn't just a story of revenge or victory. It was a story of liberation. It was a powerful testament to my strength and resilience. I had taken control of my destiny, broken the chains of abuse, and freed myself from the tyranny of their manipulation. As I looked ahead, I knew that the future was bright, and the best was yet to come. I was no longer a prisoner to their cruelty. I was free, and the world was mine to conquer. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you. I got fired after insulting the owner's disabled daughter. Although my work performance has been praised, my boss decided I wasn't a good fit. This happened on Friday. I've been drowning my sorrows all weekend, dreading the fact I have to start looking for a new job. Explaining why I got fired from my old job is going to be fun. I'm typing it up here to try and organize my thoughts in my head, because right now, it's all a mess. I had been with the company for 3 months and was still on orientation. My job was sales/advertising. As the new guy, I was given existing accounts to manage, which consisted of providing customer service and convincing my clients to spend more money on advertising. All of these accounts already had their ad campaigns done, and if they wanted something new, the account was transferred to a senior account manager who would work with our advertising guys to put something together for the customer. Eventually, I hoped to have that job, but I had to pay my dues by proving I could maintain existing accounts and convince them to spend more money first. Everything was going great, until last week, when we were scheduled to have our quarterly retreat. Since we were the main regional office in the area, all of the employees from the satellite locations came to our office for the retreat. The owner of the company rarely visits our office. He's been overseeing the setup of a new satellite office for the last year, according to my coworkers. But, he was there for the retreat, as was his disabled daughter Amy. Not her real name, for the sake of privacy. One of my coworkers told me Amy works at one of the satellite offices and I probably wouldn't have much interaction with her, but I should be nice. That seemed like a no-brainer. I'm nice to everyone, regardless. I won't claim to be an expert on Amy's disability, but it seemed like she had childlike mannerisms and struggled with expressing herself. She also had some problems with motor skills. I'll describe the only interaction I had with her prior to the incident. I went to refill my coffee and Amy was in front of me, getting her coffee. I watched her struggle with getting condiments added and putting the lid on, so I politely asked if she needed any help. She thanked me, said she did, and let me finish making it. While I was making it, she said she hated coffee, but her dad made her drink it because she had to, in a loud voice, always alert. I smiled, said that was definitely important, and handed her the cup. She thanked me again and went back to the office her dad was using, where she had been most of the day. I felt like I had been a good Samaritan and went on my way. Most of the retreat is team-building exercises. Prior to the incident, Amy only participated in the puzzle race, where groups put puzzles together without the box art to see which team could finish faster. Amy wasn't in my group, so I didn't have any interaction with her there. Neither of our teams won. The big event, and the one that everyone seemed the most excited for, was the last activity of the day. Our boss gave us a list of potential clients. We were supposed to select 3 as a group, and put together something to attract the customer. We were told we would be judged on our creativity. My group explained that we could do pictures, slogans, jingles, whatever we wanted. Each person expected to work on one individually, then work with their group to polish it up before it was presented to everyone. It was kind of a big deal because at previous retreats, there would be clients on the list the owner was already close to bringing on board, and if you impressed the owner, you might just land that account. I went with a jingle, rhymed a few words, and recorded it. It was silly but fit the brand. My group gave me some pointers, we made some improvements, and I recorded the final product for submission. I helped my team with their projects until it was time to turn everything in. After everything was turned in, we gathered in the big conference room to critique each other. The owner went through them one by one. If it was a picture or storyboard, he'd put it up, read it, and we'd make comments. Good or bad. There were some that were great which drew a lot of compliments, and some that were really bad, which we laughed about as a group. You could tell the senior account managers didn't care much about the exercise or put much effort into their pitches. Nobody seemed to get upset or offended, regardless of the feedback. When my jingle was played, it got a lot of comments, not all of them good, and I took the feedback with a smile. After getting my feedback, I felt a little more comfortable about sharing my thoughts on other presentations. I gave what I thought was valuable feedback to a few products, laughed at a couple others, and then a rather crude drawing was put up for the exact same company I had chosen. I immediately joked that, well, at least my jingle was better than that. Did a 3-year-old draw it? And laughed. To absolute silence. I was really confused because plenty of people had made jokes and everyone laughed. Instead, a few people looked at me like I was disgusting and the owner said, well, if you don't have anything nice to say, keep it to yourself maybe? Then my boss scooted down to where I was sitting and told me I needed to go to my desk. Now, I noticed as I was gathering my things that the owner's daughter was red-faced and starting to tear up. The team building exercise was over for me. I went back to my desk and it began to sink in that the drawing must have been drawn by the owner's daughter. There was no warning or anything. The owner didn't reveal who put together what we were looking at until after a few critiques. Maybe I should have known. Everyone was joking and having fun up to that point. Someone else had a pretty bad drawing that got laughed at. Either way, I felt awful. As soon as the event was over, I approached my boss to apologize. He told me to wait for him in his office. Long story short, I was fired. My boss said since I was still on orientation, he had decided I wasn't a good fit for the company, so it was better to let me go now. He didn't outright say I was being fired for making fun of her drawing, but that's literally the only thing that I've ever gotten in trouble for. My work, up until that point, had been praised. I didn't get much time to process it because my boss had already called security, who showed up fairly quickly, and escorted me to my desk to gather my things before escorting me out of the building. An hour later, I got a call from one of my former teammates, who asked if I wanted to join the team for a drink one last time. They needed it after the retreat, and felt bad that they didn't warn me. I wasn't feeling up for it, but I wanted to try and make sense of the whole situation, so I went to the bar. In the back of my mind, I was thinking that since I'm about to start looking for a new job, a few references from former coworkers wouldn't be bad since I definitely won't be getting one from my boss or the owner of the company after everything that happened. The team explained that Amy comes to all of these retreats, and she always does some crude drawing like that. Everyone just sort of knows to say nice things about it and move on. One of my teammates said that once you've seen one of her drawings, you know what to look for. Well, I didn't, and nobody warned me. I started to get pretty upset that this was a known thing and everyone knew but me, but what could I do? I had already fucked up and it cost me my job. The team also shared more about Amy. Apparently she works at one of the satellite offices but doesn't really do anything. The people in charge of the office try to come up with stuff for her to do because she gets upset when she's bored. The team said the way the people who worked there described it, they were basically her babysitter so she wouldn't bother her dad all day when he spent most of his time there, and after he moved on to establish the new satellite office, he didn't take Amy with him because she liked all the friends she had at that office. They also said that her dad had harassed a few single guys at the office to take her on dates, which seemed pretty damn HR inappropriate. But he does own the company. My team said Amy desperately wants a boyfriend and wants to get married, which she talks about all the time. The consensus seemed to be that there's no way she actually understands how relationships or marriage works, and her dad probably put this idea in her head to begin with. One of my teammates joked that it wasn't a bad deal, because whoever married her would inherit the company since she is the old man's only kid. I wasn't really in the mood for jokes at that point after losing my job over one, so I told them I needed to go. The only good thing is my former team members did say they would gladly give me a reference if I needed it, since they felt so bad about not telling me about the Amy situation to begin with. Oh, and the cherry on top? Amy sent me a Facebook friend request over the weekend. I haven't accepted it. I already upset her and it cost me my job. Part of me wants to accept it, apologize, and block her, but I'm not sure I'm ready for that either. I'm going to take a few days to get myself together and then get my resume out there. Edit. After reading all of the replies, including quite a few DMs, and talking with a close friend, I've decided that I'm going to accept the friend request. I'll do an update if there's any sort of conversation. I plan to open with an apology. If she replies, great. If she doesn't, then at least I will have a clear conscience knowing I've done the right thing. Update. If you saw my first post, you know that I got fired because I accidentally made a joke at the expense of the company owner's disabled daughter Amy. During the last team building event of the day, we were pitching ideas for accounts, which included everything from jingles, my pitch, to storyboards to slogans to drawings. A lot of senior account managers were phoning it in, and people were making jokes about their work, which had a lot of people laughing. I got some jokes about my pitch, and got a little overconfident, so when a crude drawing went up for the same account I did my jingle for, I made a joke about it. The joke was, well, at least my jingle was better than that. Did a 3-year-old draw it? My joke was met with stone-cold silence, and a very negative reaction from the owner of the company. What my coworkers had failed to tell me was that Amy usually submits a crude drawing, which is a lot of work for her due to her issues, and everyone knows to say a few nice things and move on. I was new and wasn't informed, so my ignorance and inappropriate response cost me my job. After meeting with my team at a bar to begin the process of drowning my sorrows, I got a friend request from Amy on Facebook. That brings us to the update. First of all, thank you to everyone who made me laugh. The first time someone joked about me accepting the friend request, marrying Amy, and taking my revenge by inheriting the company made me uncomfortable. By the third time I saw it mentioned, I couldn't help but laugh. A lot of you gave me good advice. I appreciate those who talked about legal action and what options I had. Unfortunately, I was still on orientation with my company, which is like a probationary period. During that time, they can let me go for any reason. They could fire me for wearing the wrong color socks if they wanted. I had to sign an agreement to get employed which stated I understood this. There's literally nothing I can do, legally. At the end of the day, I decided to go have some drinks with a good friend, talk things out, and see what he would do. Dave's been my best friend since we were in elementary school. We've probably spent more time together than some actual brothers. Dave was firmly on the side of accept the friend request, apologize, and clear your conscience, man. I'm getting us another round of shots. He knows me better than anyone, and he knows that the guilt would eat me alive. I posted it here because it bothered me. I decided to take his advice, and everyone here who pushed me for that as well, especially the ones that DM'd me. So, that's what I did. I accepted the friend request. I immediately messaged Amy. I said I shouldn't have made that joke about anyone's work, it was unprofessional, and I was sorry. It took her a while to respond, but when she finally did, she thanked me for my apology, but said she sent me the request because she wanted to apologize since I lost my job over it. I said she didn't owe me an apology, and there was another long pause before she asked if she could copy-paste something to me. I wasn't sure what it was, but said she could. She pasted a generic message, but one she had clearly spent some time on. I don't want to type it word for word, but I'll paraphrase. Hi, my name is Amy. Please forgive me if I'm slow to respond to you. I suffered a brain injury when I was a little girl and it takes me a while to type things out. There was more to it, but that's the basic stuff. I responded, saying it was not a problem and she could take all the time she needed. Amy and I ended up messaging back and forth until almost 3 a.m. No, we didn't fall in love, we aren't going on a date. I'm not going to marry her for revenge so I can take her dad's company. However, I do think I would like to be friends with her. Not because I feel bad for her, but because she's a genuinely nice person and honestly, everyone could use a few friends like that. We spent a lot of time talking about her. That's just the direction it went, so I asked questions since she seemed comfortable talking about it. Amy was in a car accident when she was a kid. She was in the car with her mom and they were hit by a drunk driver, coming back from a birthday party for one of her classmates. Her mom didn't make it, and Amy suffered a brain injury that impacted her motor skills. Because it makes it difficult for her to speak and do simple things like getting dressed, making coffee, etc., people assume she's mentally challenged. She was put in special ed because of it, but worked really hard and graduated from high school. She even wanted to go to college but her dad didn't think it was a good idea. Her life has been difficult because it's hard for her to communicate with people. By the time she can get a fully formed sentence out, the conversation is over. She can type, slowly, but most people don't want to type when they're face to face. She even admitted that when she's not at work, she will sometimes carry a tablet and pretend she's mute, because that's just easier. We eventually circled back to the drawing and my terrible response to it. She wasn't that offended by my response, because she assumed I didn't know. She got upset, primarily, because she knew all hell was about to break loose and she had no way to communicate with anyone. She was so upset when she found out I got fired, and tried to talk to her dad, but he wouldn't listen to her. She's fully aware that a lot of people at the company just pretend to be nice to her because she's the owner's daughter, but she does have a few friends at the satellite office where she works who better understand her disability. She gets frustrated because she can't truly contribute anything, but is happy when they are able to find busy work for her to do. It might take her all day to do something another person could do in a couple of hours, but it's better than sitting around bored all day. She knows she's a burden and a bother to her dad when he's around, but he's her dad and she loves him. She wishes every single day she was a daughter he could be proud of, rather than a burden. She tries talking to him via emails and text messages, but he usually doesn't respond. If they're in the same location, he'll just walk over and respond verbally, which is frustrating, because it becomes a one-sided discussion with her unable to do anything but give simple one-word answers like yes or no. She also thanked me again for helping with her coffee. She said that when she was younger, she tried to do everything by herself, and would get mad when people helped her, but now she's learned to appreciate the few who do. Most just stand there and look away, pretending to patiently wait for her to do it on her own. It was getting late for both of us at that point, really late. It takes her a long time to respond to messages. There's misspellings. I get why someone would assume she's mentally challenged. I myself referred to her in my first post as having childlike mannerisms, which was a misunderstanding on my part. When she tries to force words quickly or emphasize something, she gets really loud, which makes her sound like an excited toddler rather than an adult trying to have a conversation. We ended our talk last night agreeing to talk again sometime. She asked if I had watched the first episode of House of Dragon yet, which I have, and she asked if I'd like to talk about it after she watched it. I told her I'd love to. So that's it, that's the update. Sorry to those who expected me to steal her dad's company. I'm definitely not doing that. Talking to Amy did make me feel a lot better though. I don't know how I'm going to handle the whole firing thing at my next interview, but a few of you suggested I just leave a gap on my resume, and I may just do that. I doubt there will be any future updates, but at least this has a happier ending than my first post. TLDR, since a few asked for it in my first post, I lost my job, but I may have gained a friend. Comment by OPU/Flusterflux. Hey everyone, I am the original OP. Someone linked me to this, and I'm blown away by all the positive comments here. I guess I can give you a small update since so many people have read what I expected to be a throwaway confession post to help me organize my thoughts after having my life upended due to what I perceived as a joke, but was actually quite unprofessional on my part. As many have recommended, in my next job, I won't open my mouth unless I have something positive to say, regardless of what others are saying. That lesson is learned. So, on to the small update. I talked with Amy again last night. She loved House of Dragon. We talked about a few characters and Amy picked up some things I didn't pick up myself, so I'm gonna have to rewatch the first episode at some point. I wasn't really in the right headspace the first time I watched it anyway due to everything that happened. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.